Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professional. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
"49 days have passed since round 4 of the VSCA Sports Car Championship, and boy, have we missed it. We saw it all at Mid-Ohio, great action up and down the field, dominant teams remaining on their top forms while others fell from grace. We had overtakes, thrills, and even some spills, and I'm sure that when the cars hit the track today here at Mosport, or the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, we're going to see it all over again. Now, Mosport, or to give its official title, the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, holds its roots deeply in history, being Canada's first permanent racetrack, completed in 1961. In fact, after Sterling Moss helped them redesign the layout of the course at the last minute. His plan was to replace the planned hairpin with a double 90-degree right-hander to improve overtaking. To thank Moss for his input on the track design, the designers ended up naming corners 5A and 5B after Sterling Moss. Appropriately, in fact, Sterling went on to win the first ever official race to be held at Mosport. Since then, Mosport has held Formula One, Can-Am, and more recently, after new ownership, IMSA and the Canadian NASCAR series all joined up to race around this historic circuit. And you can see why. Its mix of high-speed corners with grass just inches away from the tarmac and slow, clumsy corners make this track both challenging and rewarding in equal measures. We're live on both the Apex Racing TV channel and the VSCA channel. My name is Sebastian Boscher-Williams. On production today is Samoli Cumo. And alongside me, as ever, is Tim Cox. Tim, good evening. It's lovely to have you back in the booth for round 6 of the VSCA Championship. I've alluded to the difficulties posed by today's track. How do you think the drivers are feeling right now? Do you think they're nervous to get out there? Or are they just feeling excited to be at a track with such history?
Seb, I think you know yourself full well that you have that little rumble of nerves, but as soon as you get in the car, get out on track, they start to dissipate. Qualifying just underway at the moment. Once you've got that done and dusted with, a bit of a moment of pause before the anticipation builds for a race start, but once you're past the first 2-3 laps, things start to settle down. You get into your groove. Obviously, the mayhem of the opening laps has curtailed a bit as well. The temperatures and the car is up to speed and up to temperature. And, wow, you just get into your groove, get the hammer down, and enjoy what comes in front of you, whether it be battling with cars, getting through the traffic. And for me, Seb, it's going to be a bit of a challenging one. Mosport, it's a tough track. Not many corners. They're all quite free-flowing, but for me, Turn 2, Clayton. Always a bit tricky, a bit treacherous, because it looks like you should be able to take it a lot faster than what you really can. And it really tightens up on corner exits, and that means you quite often, certainly in the officials on iRacing, and well, there you go. Point proven. You can find the grass on the outside incredibly well. And the McGuire's team, Friday Sport car there, the Porsche 911 GT3, showcasing what happens. You either run off wide or you catch the grass, it flicks the car left, and, well, you find the looming wall on the inside. It's a bit of a strange track, this set, because the walls are very close to the edge of the track. I think you spoke about it into your introduction as well. But it doesn't provide a lot of runoff area. It's certainly not like a track like Snetterton, where you can drive for half an hour and even get your passport out because you're that far off the track and you still haven't come up against the barrier. This track's very, very different. It's not quite a street circuit in places, but I tell you what, it really isn't far off, because one mistake, as we've just seen there, makes all the difference. And you find the walls incredibly easy. Then, for me, the S's, the entry into it are the Mario Andretti straightaway, but they call it a straightaway, bit of a curve in it, but that provides an exciting and great overtaking opportunity into whites. Then the final corner as well, before you head across the start finish line, where just seeing the FBP Racing Ferrari head through there. But it's all good fun. And you could forget about Moss. You mentioned it in your introduction, Seb, as well, but it's a bit of a tabletop that you come up onto, and especially with those cold tires early on, bit of a treacherous place for braking, and especially when you've got people alongside you, that could potentially be a bit of a danger zone and a hot spot on the opening lap.
I think the question is, where are there danger zones around this amazing track? We saw actually the Porsche that ended up spinning and hitting the wall on the exit of turn 2 was our pole sitters, our pole sitters at the time, McGuire's Frida Sport, the number 13, they were on pole, back into the pits. Hopefully they can repair that damage, because I think as the rules stand, I think they are allowed to remove and replace the car, but they can't tow back to the pits under the VSCA rules. So, yeah, disaster. It really punishes drivers today, making those mistakes on board as we head around the final section of the lap into turn number 10, White's corner. Make sure to hit the apex. He does that very nicely. Where is this going to put Fisher Motorsports Eagle? They're down in 17th place at the moment. Moves up to 16th place for them. Improved by about 1/10 of a second or so. Good improvements there from number 85 Porsche. As we head through turn 2 once again. And you mentioned it, Tim. I think this is where we're going to see all the action on lap 1. And actually, Quebec corner turn 3 is another tricky one as well. Just talk to us about, you know, the difficulties of these corners. They've got such high curbs, and it's going to really unsettle the cars, especially when we start to see the prototypes heading out in a few minutes or so.
It's definitely as you say, Seb, it's because the nature of the track is so free-flowing that you can really get caught up in yourself when you're, especially if you're battling alongside someone, and a lot of the corners do tend to tighten up on corner exit, which makes it a little bit unique, a bit slower to get out, as we're just seeing the Shamrock Racing Porsche 911 there and onto the track. Daniel Santos easy on board for qualifying, and that makes getting away and those corner exits so crucial. If you're battling with someone, then it's really going to compromise your corner exit. Now, this car, if you're in a pack of 3 and there's car in front of you, you're the car at the rear, you're making the move on the car in the middle of the freeway pack, and oh dear, the Fisher Motorsports Porsche having a bit of a issue there. That's on the exit of Moss. It's going to really compromise you, and you're going to end up losing quite a bit of time. So the key here, Seb, is to work with the people around you. However, these are motor racing drivers, Seb, and well, it doesn't quite always work out like that, even within teammates.
Even when they are teammates, certainly agree with that sentiment. Can't wait to get this race underway. I mentioned that, you know, the pole sitters at the time, they made that mistake. Maguire's team Frida Sport just had a quick check of the rules, and they cannot take part. As soon as you exit the car, you are done for qualifying. So if you get any form of damage that's, you know, too serious and you end up having to come into the pits, that is your qualifying over. So really costly mistake there for the number 13. They'll be hoping to remedy that during the race. Of course, the 2-hour 40-minute race, they can do it, but it's not ideal. I think that BMW also picking up a little bit of front end damage. I think that's seen the barriers so far in this qualifying session. As we now head down towards Moss Corner, such a tricky part of the track. Want to get your braking just right, so easy to touch the grass on the outside. And interestingly, Tim, the drivers have been told to, you know, really take care in these corners, especially the LMP2s when lapping the GT3. So we'll be watching for that, and I don't expect to see that much action with drivers lapping, as race control is so sort of crucial about making sure that you don't cause an accident in these sort of problem corners, as they're describing it.
Just interestingly, Seb, we're talking about Moss and the issues there. It was the car. We saw another car just heading off in the background there. I do believe it was the one that we saw earlier, the Fisher Motorsport Porsche. I didn't quite capture full glimpse of it, but I'm pretty sure it was them having a few issues with that challenging corner. And we've got 13 minutes of qualifying completed so far, and not long left in qualifying for these guys to try and get their best times in. I mean, Fisher, they've had those couple of issues there. Currently 14th right now in GT3, or GTD if you're giving it, followed by its proper official IMSA coding. There's actually no difference between GT3 and GTD, just a naming rights thing. Also standing for GT Daytona. There's the DRG Racing Silver Mercedes. This brand new Mercedes 2i Racing. Spectacular machine. Drives like it on rails. Really, really is rewarded by smooth driving, Seb. And that's going to be what's the key. And Mosport, it does lend to that driving style. Oddly, you know, not too many of the drivers have elected to go for it. But you got obviously the DRG machine that we currently and the Money House Racing Mercedes, the only two. We'd also have the two Money House Racing. We've got black and red. However, red are yet to take to the track, so you'll see them at post of qualifying time. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting. A nice mix of GT3s to really spice things up. We're the only ones who haven't got represented here across the Ford, which I see seldom. I think I've only ever seen it once or twice. We've got one lone Audi, a Lamborghini, but obviously the rest are all in here. With the exception of the McLaren, nobody's opted to go for that one. However, it doesn't reduce the amount of excitement that we're going to have.
As we see, actually, the pole sitter ending up taking a trip to the barriers. So the 77 car, Shamrock Sim Racing, to the top of the timing stands. Won an absolutely mega lap. Purple sectors in Sector 1 and Sector 2, but it all came undone for them through Turn 9. And they are in the wall. Let's have a look at the replay. This is Daniel Santos on board the 77 Porsche. Still, I should add, the top of the timing stands. So through the S's we go. Riz starting to slide, gets the snap over. Oh, wow. And across into the wall. Mega accident there for the 77. That is their qualifying done and dusted. Although I don't think they'll be too upset. Still holding that top spot. 50 minutes are up in this qualifying session. Nobody can start a new lap. Fogel goes up to 5th place. The 97 car, that's DRG Racing Silver. DSRT we are looking at the moment. The 52 Ferrari. What can they do? Are they improving? Their sectors don't look particularly rapid on this lap, and they choose to pull into the pits. Their qualifying session is done. Who else is out there? Lucas David, the Hyper Racing team, number 37 Porsche. What can he do? You see the tire marks left by our pole sitters flipping in the gravel, in the grass even. And Lucas decides to come into the pits as well. I think that is our GT3 qualifying done and dusted, unless David Anderson, CMSRacing.com Endurance, can do anything about it. He's set a personal best sector in Sector 2. What can he do through the final sector here? Head into the braking zone of Turn 9. And again, he's pulling into the pit, so No, nobody is improving. So I do believe that that is our grid set for the GT3s. Shamrock Sim Racing are your pole sitters. Maguire's team Frida even, Sport second, and FPB Racing third. As we now have this little bit of downtime, about 3 minutes until we see the LMP2s out on track, and it's the perfect time to have a look at the championship standings. Of course, since we've been off air, VSCA have had another race. They did the 6 hours of Watkins Glen, just like IMSA does in real life. So let's see how everything is looking. And wow, look at that. This is the LMP2 standing as Lone Wolf Motorsports, the 747 car, 1,000 points to their name, 40 points separating them between themselves and Element Sim Racing Fire, with Albrecht Motorsports in third. Auto Sim Racing team is in fourth, and look how close all of these drivers are. Fisher Motorsports again close, still above that 700 point mark, with Sim Racing Grid Moist 700 points, actually tied for positions over Talk Freak Racing Ascari. Race for Cat just outside that 700 point barrier, tied for points between Race for Cat, CMS Racing Pro, Race for Cat Motorsport. We've got the 11 car in 8 and top 10, and then we also have AG Motorsports as well, tying for that top 10. So really interesting battles there. Talk Freak Racing Maggots are your GT3 Championship standings, or standings leader, I should say, with Kinetic Racing's VSCA in second place, 20 points separating them. Quite a big gap now as we head to Maguire's team Frida Sport. They had a good qualifying, so they'll be hoping to make up some more points today. Westwood Racing Esports, VSCA in fourth place. 10 points separating them, and Hyper Racing team on TR powered by Geeks Energy is sixth. Disco Motorsports seventh, with Fisher Motorsports Porsche eighth. Sim Racing Grid Thunder ninth, and 27 Motorsports Yellow in 10th place. Watch out for all of those in the race. They'll be wanting to make up their points. 2 rounds to go in this championship. One more sprint race, one more endurance race, and they'll be wanting to claim both the sprint title and the overall. So you want to score as many points as possible. Tim, just looking at that, the track temperature is absolutely scorching hot at the moment. My Fahrenheit to Celsius isn't too good these days, but 108 Fahrenheit, I mean, that's not exactly cool, is it?
It's not. It's 42 degrees Celsius, Seb. We've got a relatively cool 21 degrees ambient temperature, and also wind speeds there nice and low, only 4 miles an hour to 7 kilometers an hour. Not even really gusting either, so it's going to provide nice consistency for the drivers. No nasty surprises of when they approach a corner and all of a sudden find that it's blowing and moving the car around, and very different to last time they visited. But those high track temperatures, Seb, well, that's going to mean for the drivers, it's almost going to feel like it's borderline driving on ice. Incredibly slippy surface with not a lot of grip will also mean that tyre degradation, obviously through the tyres heating up, will become a bit of an issue. Quite good though for on your outlaps, because it doesn't mean you'll be able to generate heat and get the tyres up to temperature and nice and toasty incredibly quickly. However, it's at that risk of tyre degradation and the issues that those bring, and of course we haven't even mentioned yet the full course yellow system that this league runs, and the ability for that to really mix things up and provide alternative strategy opportunities even for the drivers out there.
Of course, we even saw last time out at Mid-Ohio a driver, or a team even, managing to repair their damage while the full course yellow was going on, and that brought them right back into the race. So if you've got your strategy mind switched on, you can really benefit from the full course yellows. Of course, if there is one, no guarantee. Of course, the system runs off how many incidents does the race have in total, and there's a random number that the software sort of has in mind, and then after that threshold is met, it calls a full course yellow. Really interesting system. This is World of Sim Racing team Danny Fontaine, Pedra 51 at the wheel, about to start their first flying lap around the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Tim, why don't you take us through a lap in the LMP2?
Absolutely love to, Seb. So here we go around turn 1 and turn 2, I was mentioning earlier, tightens up on exit, bit careful on entry. And there you go, just hooking it up before you come hard on the brakes into Quebec. A never-ending right-hander. Really just letting the car just drift out wide and it's full committal under the bridge. And now pick your braking spot. Here we go, hard on the brakes. First entry to Moss, and then that double right-hander up onto a bit of a tabletop. Bit tricky for braking for you. Just dip it down a bit with a head up for the long run all the way up the hill. And Mario Andretti straight away. Plenty of strip streaming will be going on here during race conditions. And then we're going to head to where you're just going to a bit of a dab of the brakes, get the turn turned in and just guide it through. And then hook it up on the left-hand side there, and then into White's, the final corner. Just bounce across, take as much of that as you dare. Otherwise you go a bit too far over. The amount of time, Seb, that I've seen people just push the exit of White's too hard, and then the car ends up spearing across to the right into the pit wall, and that is game over for you. Hefty damage, hefty repairs. As we see Element Sim Racing Fire head to the top of the sign sheets. Jan Volmers, he's in the cockpit for them, and a considerable margin too as well. 0.4 of a second quicker than anyone else, and just look how close the cars behind them are. A mere 0.07 of a second cover second, third and fourth. Race for Cat, Lone Wolf Motorsport and CMS Racing Pro. And then we have got, well, closer still realistically, Seb. Just 2 seconds covering the whole of LMP2. You guys are yet to take, well, they have bailed their times deleted so far. But I say that Sim Racing Grid Moist just popping up to 4th, second row of the grid. Precision, unfortunately they've had their 1 and only time deleted so far, but still plenty of opportunity left in the tank for them. That gap is closing, it's down to a 10th with that brilliant lap from Mark Frexia of a Race for Cat Motorsport, Seb. A real gem as those two look to duel it out near the front.
They do. So let's have a bit of an overview, as you were saying, Tim. You know, the top, was it 15 or all of them separated by 1.5 seconds now. Absolutely incredible stat, going to make for some great LMP2 action. We saw it 50 days ago now at Mid-Ohio, and I'm sure it's going to continue right where it left off. And of course, it's a different race to the last race that these drivers entered in. It was a 6-hour race, more about endurance and consistency rather than this more sprint-like race. A little bit wide there for the number 10 car. That's not going to help their lap time through the final corner of White. Moves him up to 2nd place though, as that's McFarlane in the Sim Racing Grid Moist car up into pole position. 7 thousandths of a second separating him in the 747 car. And Pedro Gomez has got it all to do. It seems so simple to him, doesn't it? Find 7 thousandths of a second. You could do that by just, you know, shifting up a fraction of a second earlier or later, but it's so difficult. Oh, that's the 747 car off the track. Luckily for them, they've managed to keep the engine running. No damage for them, so they'll... Oh, there's another one going off. And it's, of course, it's so important. That's the 2nd place driver, so that's McFarland as well as... Sorry to cut in there, Tim. Fisher Motorsport USA have now gone up to the top of the timing stand, so these mistakes could prove crucial for who gets pole position in today's race.
It just shows just how hard our drivers are pushing it here today, because top 2 both having an incident pretty much at the same time in exactly the same spot. As we see the Fisher Motorsports, well, they did temporarily have pole 4. Guess who beat them to it? Race for Cat. As we see Elements, Sim Racing Fire even take control of things. Volmers back to the top of the timing sheets where he was earlier in qualifying, but wow, these times are really, really flying in right now, Seb, because CMS Racing Pro, what a lap from them, and under a 10th, in fact, just shy of 0.08 of a second, cover off top 4, our first 2 rows of the grid. You could not get any closer if you tried. And to put it in perspective, the blink of an eye is 0.3 of a second. If you base that, that covers our top 8, which takes you all the way down to World Sim Racing. Pedra currently taking on qualifying for them, the Iberian. It's just so close between all of them, it's just almost borderline frightening. I mean, at the start of qualifying, we had 2 seconds covering whole of our field. That's now down to 1.16 seconds, the spread across 16 cars. And literally, as you were saying earlier, Seb, a slight upshift too late or too quickly can cost you a place or even two on the grid here today at Mosport.
Absolutely incredible race of the 23 car off again. Dan McFarlane Sim Racing grid taking a trip to the grass. Not for the first time in this session, going to have to be careful to rejoin. Careful of the floor as well, and that's somebody going very wide. The 79 car. It's not what you want to be doing at all. Of course, you've really got to treat these cars with care during this qualifying session, as are the rules. Again, he goes off the track, Tim, and he's just avoided the barriers. But this is not going Sim Racing Grid's ways. I think he might have actually just grazed the tyre barrier there. You know, they've got the pace. They were, you know, they were provisionally on pole only a few laps ago, and it does seem like the track is cooling down slightly. It's ramping up. People are finding more pace. It's not the question that they can find the 2.5 tenths that they need to retake that lead, but they can't keep on making these mistakes. And of course, under the rules, they can't change the driver. Once you get in the car, you are set for the driver, so they can't even swap Dan out for another driver that maybe is feeling a little bit more confident.
You were spot on the temperature, Seb. We had doing GT3 qualifying 42 degrees Celsius. It's now dropped down to 36, and of course, local time here in Canada is just, well, 1.5 minutes to be precise until 1 p.m. So those track temperatures are going to descend as the race continues, and that's going to, well, come as a really welcomed treat to the drivers. I think I really look forward to that one as we see World of Sim Racing there currently in 5th. Petra still in the car for them, as you mentioned. Drivers unable to make changes to their drivers during qualifying, just emulating that real life factor of what you see in a sports car racing. And to be fair, I love racing in general, but of course sports cars traditionally being multi-class. There's a bit of a bumble across the curves halfway round Moss there, Seb, and I think that could catch a few of our drivers out today, especially when fatigue starts to run in later in the race.
Yeah, such a vital point that you've picked up on there, Tim. You know, fatigue, especially around a circuit that's so compact as this, and especially if you're the LMP2 drivers, you're going to be really struggling for lapping the slower cars every lap, and it does sort of wear you down, and you kind of end up making some fairly silly mistakes that you wouldn't think that you'd be able to otherwise. You
say that, Seb. I'm going to interject there because quite often, you know, especially myself, I do enjoy driving the LMP2. However, quite often it's for the GT3s it can be more tiring, because not only are they locked into their battle, you know, in their own class, same as what the LMP2s are. However, when the P2s come around to lap them, it's harder to concentrate on what's going in front of you, as well as the fast approaching LMP2s. And we all know what it's like. We've seen it in sim racing, we've seen it in real life racing, and when there's a fierce battle going on over position in both classes, and they come together when they come around to lap one another, it is incredibly challenging. So I would say is outright saving the groundskeepers some jobs there, doing a bit of grass mowing for them. That's down at Quebec, yes it is. And
off the track again.
We'll catch you the grass on the outside, saving a bit of job for them. But yeah, it's for me, it's harder for the GT3 drivers because they need to concentrate on what's happening in front of them and what's going on behind them, and where the LMP2 is looking to place their car.
Yeah, I think you picked up on a very vital point. You're right, the GT3 drivers are going to struggle just as much, and yeah, you sometimes forget that it is an art to be lapped, to be the slower class. It's not just as simple as letting them overtake you. You have to be always looking in your mirrors and looking ahead of you at the same time. So if the drivers don't get tyres, they're certainly going to get dizzy. Maybe a little bit of both. Cameron Barker out on track at the moment. Very, very close formation at the moment. This is Rusty Spatulas. You'd have thought they might want to drop back a little bit, not get into the dirty air, but maybe Rusty Spatulas want that slipstream just to follow, or maybe just to follow the other car, learn their lines. Not quite sure, but unusual to see two cars so close together as we head into the final 3.5 minutes of qualifying. It's very polite of the 79 car, just jumping out of the way, allow Rusty Spatulas through. They've got the benefit of all of that nice slipstream through turn 1 into turn 2. Now they can unleash that pace as we head towards turn 5. 5A, should I say. Now we're into turn 5B, gets ever tighter. Of course, this is Sterling Moss's great idea, and it has certainly improved the racing. I'd have been really interested to see what the hairpin that there was originally planned would have done for the racing, but I think we can all agree that this double right-hander is so iconic for Mosport. To the top of the times being stands again. Race for Cat Motorsport. Cameron Barker now down to 3rd place. We saw 79 car get out of the way, so this won't be a particularly rapid lap for them, but he'll be building up his lap to go once again. And now, as we build to the final few moments of qualifying, Tim, this is where everything counts. This is where you have to be perfect on the brakes, brake just that little bit later, and you cannot afford to make any mistake.
It's always do or die as well. Fisher Motorsport there, Seb. New pole position time. 105.7, nicking Race for Cat by 700ths of a second. No, sorry, 600ths of a second even. Didn't matter, 100th of a second there. Even so, it's... I mean, I'm lost for words almost on how close it is here at Mosport.
It's almost the same margin between first and second as we have in the GT3 standings. You can see that on your timing tower. 6 thousandths of a second separating first and second as Volumers now heads to the top of the timing stands, and that's a massive lap. 1 minute 5.566, almost 2/10 quicker than Fisher Motorsport. Element Sim Racing Fire certainly pulling out that fire on the final lap of qualifying. Actually, they might even be able to go again, so can they improve? Can they get even further ahead? We'll have to find out in a few moments' time, but a fascinating qualifying session so far. If qualifying is anything to go by, the race is going to be even better. We have a look. Can Race for Cat, can they reclaim their pole position? And it looks like the 14 car is headed into the pits. I don't think they're going to have enough time to go on their outlap again. No, they're not. So the 14 car will not be able to improve. The best place that they are going to to start the race is in 2nd place. But what can Race for Cat do? Can they improve? I think, Tim, this is going to be their final lap, and they're going to have to absolutely blitz it.
This is it, Seb. All or nothing. The Hail Mary lap. Let's try and dig something out here. And it's going to be full commitment. You've got nothing to lose, only to gain, potentially. Let's run it in deep there to Strexia of Race for Cat. Round Quebec. Oh, that switch on the rear end. That could be the difference, Seb, that could cost them the chance of going onto pole. It's going to be need a mammoth lap. That twitch, just that twitch there alone, Seb, they would have had to go out the pro. Well, there you go. That is that done and dusted off the track at Moss. That time will be deleted, even if they had been able to go quicker. But, well, you can see how slowly they were going. But I get the feeling, Seb, they're on the final tour round, but we're not looking at what is going to be our pole sitter.
Yeah, I do completely agree with you there, Tim. Nobody else on track improving really at all. CMS.com Pro is improving. Sector 2 was about 3/10, actually quicker than Element Sim Racing Fire went, but not the fastest out of anybody. So does that mean that Element Sim Racing Fire had more time out there? Could they have been even further ahead? Right, ominous if you are the drivers behind. It's like CMS though are just backing off the pace. Cameron Barker at the wheel, not really pushing through the S's. I think we'll see him just dive into the pit lane. There he goes. So that is your qualifying done for the LMP2s for round 6, I should say, of the VSCA Championship. And what a race we have in store for you today. 2 hours and 40 minutes of, I'm sure, wall-to-wall racing, 2 classes, and of course that full course yellow mechanic that could be introduced at any time, just increasing the drama and the racing potential even more. I think we're just going to bring you the results just to confirm where everybody is. We can get ready to go racing. But Tim, before we do that, we've been talking about how difficult this track can be at times. Where do you think we're going to see sort of the highest likelihood of having a first lap incident? Where's the sort of the pinch point on this circuit?
Well, Seb, I think we've pretty much seen it already. Down at Moss Corner is going to be a really, really intriguing first few laps to see how the drivers handle that one. And also, right about lap 7, keep an eye out for that one too, because that's when we're going to be somewhere around lap 5 to 7, somewhere in that window. You'll see the LMP2s will start to lap the GT3s, and that's going to make it all the more treacherous. That danger's going to come back around again. Also, Clayton Corner, turn 2, that exit we spoke about before. That's going to be an intriguing one and a challenge for our driver, especially at race start.
As we see the grid for today's race, Element Sim Racing Fire taking that pole position in the LMP2 classes. Fisher Motorsports second, Race for Cat in third. CMSRacing.com Pro will line up on the second row in fourth, with Sim Racing Grid Moist fifth. World of Sim Racing Team in sixth. Rusty Spatulas improved to seventh. Lone Wolf Motorsports number 747 in eighth. There are championship leaders, so not got the pace that we'd necessarily expected from them. Watch for them to move through the field as the race goes on. Precision Racing Esports 9th. AG Motorsports in 10th, with Albrecht just outside the magical top 10 in 11th. And Talk Freak Racing Ascari start in 12th. Hometown Hero Racing in 13th place. Race for Cat, the other Race for Cat Motorsports team, in 14th. Trading Paints Racing Team 15th, with Black Dove Racing rounding out your LMP2 grid. As we move down to the GT3 grid, Shamrock Sim Racing takes the pole position. Maguire's team Frida Sport in second, with FPB Racing third. Hack Racing fourth, is DRG Silver is fifth, and DSRT line up in sixth place. LSC Motorsports 7th, Talk Freak Racing 8th, with Kinetic Racing in 9th, and FAC Autotech rounding out your top 10. Hypera will start just outside the top 10 in 11th, with Disco Motorsport alongside them on the grid in 12th. Faster Esports 13th, Fisher Motorsports Porsche 14th. As we have Real Pixel Motorsport 15th, with Firestorm Motorsports in 16th. Sorry, I get the wrong way around. Firesports Motorsport starts 15th, and Real Pixel Motorsports 16th, with Fisher Motorsports Eagle 17th, Moneyhouse Racing Black in 18th place. 9th grid on the grid is Resolve Racing 19th, NR Esports 20th, V-Apex Racing Group 21st, CMSRacing.com Endurance not sharing the same success their sister LMP2 team are having. 22nd on the grid for them. Flex Motorsport 23rd, and Moneyhouse Racing Red rounding out your grid, but they will not be taking the start. Tim, they have been disqualified from the session for an incorrect number, so they will take no further part in this race. A costly mistake for them, but I guess those are the rules.
They are indeed, and something so simple can catch you out so easily. And so much planning goes into these events, especially from the organisers and the teams alike. But they have to ensure that all the rules are adhered to. Only one person within the team who's tasked with given the thankless task of roaming through the rule book, prepping the team to ensure that they know exactly where they stand, what needs to be done, and also, especially with these full course yellows as well, what the procedure and protocol is around them. Because if you find yourself at the lead of your class, all the onus is on yourself. And the drivers are like, there's no one to copy, and one infringement could cost you so dearly and unravel your race. But to head through the S's, Seb, I can't wait for this one. I get a feeling this is going to be an absolute classic.
Certainly agree with you there, Tim, as we're around the final corner. All eyes now on the number 7. They are your pole sitter, and they will decide when they want to get going. Ready to get racing. They can go whenever they want to, and they've decided to go now. Great start from our pole sitter. Down the inside goes the number 10 car. Person, though, just manages to cover them off. There's a car wide on the exit. That's a 747 car. Disastrous start from their side. Down to 10th place. Almost collided with the car. McFarlane's round. That's at turn 2. So first victim of turn 2 goes to the 23. Disaster for them. Just have to engage the clutch and hope you can get out of the grass. As we now do it all over again, this time with the GT3s 77 car on pole on the inside. When do they decide to go? Will they get a good start as the LMP2 field? They certainly do. Into the lead, cut across, down the inside goes the Ferrari. That's the 151 car, making up a little bit of their, I think that's the, sorry, that's, yeah, so it is the 151 car, I do apologise. So that's a great start from them as we, side by side through turn 2 we go. Everybody looking clean. Oh, there's a little bit of contact between the Ferrari and the Porsche. We all now slowly get on the brakes. Cold tyres, of course, don't want to get involved in any first lap incidents. Disastrous start there for the 94 car. I think they might have even picked up a little bit of damage already. The 111 car and the 52 car racing side by side as we head into Moss corner. Round the outside goes the 52 car. Just about keeps it within the track boundaries. So close to running wide and getting into the dirt. Side by side between the Porsches. 2 Ferraris having a little bit of a race and 2 Porsches having a little bit of a race. This time the 67 just out races the 6. That's Kinetic Racing ahead of Torque Freak. What can Torque Freak do? Do they fancy sending it down the inside, or do they just want to play it safe? They're going to go to the outside as we head towards the S's. Turns 8 and 9 coming up. Can't get past though. Great start and a lot cleaner from the GT3s than the LMP2s, Tim. But still, nice to see it all going very, very clean. But what has happened to, it's Real Pixel Motorsport in the GT3 field. They're down 13 places from the start. Disastrous for them.
Something's clearly happened. Of course, got a feel for Sim Racing Grid and it's in LMP2. But Farlin getting caught on that grass and really unravelling what had been a great qualifying performance. But what a start from 11 Simfar Racing already, Seb. Already on lap 3, already 1.2 seconds clear of the field. That trailing peloton that are trying to work together to close that gap up. Much more tighter affair in GT3. This is getting incredibly close between all of them in GT3. Well, that's the top 2 pulling away, and it's that peloton pack once again chasing them down. DMS, see there, being harassed and harried, harangued by World of Sim Racing. So head up, the Mario Andretti straight away. Tucked in right now. Talking about being tucked in here, it's Precision Racing Esports against Rusty Spatulas. Now you can make this move work right around the outside because it's going to give you the inside line for the exit of the S's, and there you go. Darian Roy showing exactly how it's done. Precision Racing Esports, that's them up a place. They are now into 6th, 3 places gained since the start. The Canadian driving hard here in his home race.
Say that, driving at your home race can give you 0.3 of a second. Also giving him the ability to pull off some stunning moves as we have our first GT3 almost contact there. As now going to get crazy. That's a 97 Mercedes, of course, the new Mercedes Evo, the first run out for the new car off the track, rejoining on the exit of Moss. So close to contact there. Under pressure now from all the cars behind. We have a look at CMS Racing Pro trying to get past the Porsche. Does so cleanly on the exit. I think something's happened to the 112 car. That's the Rusty Spatula's car going down the order, Tim. I think they might have come a cropper somewhere in the Moss complex.
There they are, Seb. I mean, they're all scrambling, trying to get through the traffic, and this is where you can gain and make lose a lot of time in equal measures. And I mean, just look at them, Seb. It's like the animals queuing up to get onto Noah's Ark, 2 by 2 by 2. It is incredibly treacherous. You've got to really pick your battles. Sometimes you have to yield a bit on corner entry so that you can then really nail it through the corner and get the corner exit right. Oh, there's a car in the air, Seb! There's one the LMP juice off. Oh, there's 4, 5, 6. It's all down at turn 2, Seb. I said they had to be careful here. And look what's happened. Disaster. And that's the Money House Racing Black Mercedes. They've been running strong. And there, well, it's looking like it's done and dusted for them. They've had to tow to the pits. I'll tell you what, the Race for Cat Motorsport LMP2, that's going slow as well. So they've got hefty damage. Well said. See the Mercedes now. There it is. Red and black. They got a nudge from, like, oh, wow, and then the chaos starts. We're all just, it's like on the motorway, it's just that concertina effect. One incident or someone just over-braking slightly, then causes everyone to all trip up over one another. Didn't quite catch who it was in LMP2 that just caught the Money House Mercedes to then trigger off that cacophony of drama and incidents that we just saw there down at Clayton. But I know for one thing, Seb, the stewards are going to be taking a very stern look into that one as, oh, there's a bruised and battered Ferrari. That's the Flex Motorsports machine.
That's a very battered Ferrari. Just cruising into the pit lane. You can see on the car, they're already 23rd in class. Lucky to get it back to the pits with that heavy damage, but that's going to be a long repair. If it's repairable at all, you can see the suspension damage not going to be helping the steering. They've got aero damage, and I'd be surprised if they don't have some form of engine damage or at least cooling damage. So disastrous start for some of the drivers out there, but our leader just ran away with it. The gap is now up to 3.6 seconds in the LMP2 class, a little bit less in the GT3. 1 second separating the Ferrari from the Porsche. Cameron Barker just getting by. Great job there in 5th place. Can they make their way up to the 51 of CMS Racing Pro? They've got past all of the traffic now. It's a clear track up ahead, and putting all of those lap times that you know you can do. It's just so frustrating to be stuck behind traffic, as that's an adventurous move there from the 17 car. And the 43, that's one of the Talk Freak Racing Ascari. They're going to be stuck behind the 13 Porsche. Manages just to get out of the way in the end, but that's delayed their charge on the car up ahead. Of course, this is multi-class racing. You're going to win some, and you are certainly going to lose some. I say some, I do mean time, and it's just ebbs and flows, and if you start getting frustrated with yourself, you can end up in a whole world of pain.
That's right, so it's all about that net loss across a lap. So that's how much time you mentioned there that you lose due to traffic, and it's always the most challenging the first 2-3 times that you come around to lap the slower class or be lapped by the faster class, and from that point onwards then it gets a bit more spaced out as the field just naturally spaces itself out, gaps emerge between all the drivers. That does make it easier, but like you say, you just have to pick and choose your battles, as we said earlier, making sure that sometimes you actually have to go slow up and go a lot slower through a corner so that you can accelerate out of it and get past the car in front of you exactly the right time. But I'll tell you what, this is a cracking little battle being played out in GT3.
Oh! Spin from the Lamborghini. That's contact between the 84 Porsche, the 94 Lamborghini, round at turn 2. More drama at turn 2 today. We said it was going to be bad at Mosport, didn't realise we'd have so much action so soon into the race. And let's have a look at the replay. So what's going to go on here? This is Nippy racing the 85. What's going to happen? See, oh, so it's just simply the Lamborghini just losing the rear. Too much ambition into the corner. Rear slides, and just the innocent bystander as the Porsche just took the damage when they had no other option. Unfortunate for them. And the Porsche is kind of susceptible to damage. Oh, and there's a spin. So I wonder if Faster Esports, Tim, have more damage than it looks like from the outside. Maybe a little bit of steering damage, because that car did not look controllable in the slightest heading into Moss.
Trying to have a bit of a look, so I can't see any apparent damage, but the way that they've just retired the car, that says to me that there is definitely damage in some form. It could be a steering column or suspension. It's not so apparent as a broken wing. Oh no, Talk Freak, it's all gone wrong. That's down to Moss, Seb.
Talk Freak really not having a good start to the race. Hit the barrier on the entrance to Moss, and I hazard a guess if they've just simply broken a little bit too late, maybe even gone onto the grass, which of course affects your retardation. And it's a one-way trip to the barrier. That's Vorowski at the wheel. Really seeing drama playing itself out. We're only 10 minutes into this race, 2.5 hours to go. They're in P12 at the moment. Our Talk Freak racing Ascari. They can make their way through the field as long as the damage isn't too bad. course, the LMP2, a high downforce car, it relies on downforce to provide so much of its grip. So if it gets any form of damage, it can be so susceptible to losing pace, but fingers crossed for them that damage isn't too bad, and they can continue and push up and get to the place where they want to do, or they think they can get to, because it's so disheartening as a team knowing that you could have been somewhere if it wasn't for a mistake earlier on. Kinetic Racing 7th place. And they're looking at getting past the Ferrari, the number 20. That's LTS Motorsports. Alex Velo in the car. He's up 3 places from where he started. Great drive from him. As we head towards turn 3, that Ferrari not looking as settled as the Porsche. Actually, the gaggle of Porsches behind him are in a little bit of a Ferrari sandwich. 3rd place, the 13 car is a Porsche. Then we have 3 Ferraris line of stern, and then 4 Porsches line of stern. So it definitely feels a little bit like a team or a manufacturer versus manufacturer battle. There's Vincent there using a lot of the exit curve through Moss. And I'm surprised at that, Tim. We haven't really seen the GT3s adventure too much sort to the extremities of the exit curve. Do you reckon that's going to help his run, or do you think he just made a mistake and ended up sort of out wide?
I would say, based on how the cars have been so far, that was more of a mistake, or just pushing too hard. Sometimes, Seb, you can be in a bit of danger of overdriving the car, and seeing LTS in front of us right now, they're going to be pushing as hard as can. Of course, having to work doubly hard compared to the kinetic Porsche we're currently on board with right now, because they're essentially ploughing a furrow for them in terms of cutting through the air. When you're the car following, you can use less throttle to obviously move your car along at the same speed. That then in turn leads to a reduction in fuel consumption, meaning you can go longer, or you can like to pit at the same time as what you were planning. But then you'd have to take on less fuel. As a lunge from the BMW there. That's Disco Motorsport.
Yeah, great move by the BMW. Gets past the 37 Porsche. That's Hyper Racing team. Yeah, the BMW now up 4 places from where they started. In fact, the Mercedes wants to get into the action. That's the number 10 car. The other Race for Cat Motorsport car off it. Moss corner has to rejoin sideways as he re-enters the track. Lucky to not be involved in any sort of accident. They're 3 wide now, down the back straight, almost 4 wide. 3 LMP2s going for it. That's the 17 car trying to get past the 96. The number 10 car is out of this fight. They just simply don't have enough straight line speed after coming off the track a few corners ago. Down the inside goes the 17 car. That's Guy Motorsports up into 6th place. Albrecht down to 7th with Race for Cat in 8th. Disastrous. I keep on saying that word, Tim, disastrous, but it's sort of been disastrous for all the teams out there that have made these early mistakes. It's just so not what you want to do as your race. You just want to be able just to have a clean opening stint, and then you could start exploring the limits of the track and maybe opening yourself up to getting more mistakes. But disastrous. I keep on saying it. I need to find a synonym for disastrous. I think you see the windscreen wiper there going for the Race for Cat LMP2 as around the outside they go of the number 16 Porsche. Porsche keeps very nicely. That's the 51 car. So another of our race leaders off at Moss corner. World of Sim Racing team. This time it goes across the inside rather than the outside of Moss corner. We have a stop and hold penalty for car 211. Actually, I don't think that is necessarily car 11. I'll see.
Yes, car 211. That's Precision Esports in LMP2. There you go. You can see him on the screen now. Darian Roy, after that cracking start, he's up 6 places already. So he has been helped by the World of Sim Racing team. The issues down as they have a bit of lunge up the inside of the Audi there. The Firestorm Motorsports machine. A flash of the lights to say, well, I was really impressed by that manoeuvre there from the Audi. Is Seb, I don't know about you, but my heart is skipping a beat as they're 2 wide, 3 wide, left, right, inside, outside.
Oh, he's going to go off. He's going to go off. He's in the barriers. He's going to hit the wall. There's no way he can get that stop down. Albrecht Motorsports heading to the scene of the accident so early on. Oh, and there's another one. That's a 23. That's Dan McFarland once again finding the barriers. Somehow he manages to overtake another car on the grass. They put oil down on the entrance to turn number 2, Clayton Corner, Tim, because that corner is proving so difficult for all of our drivers, and we're getting a replay now. This is if Dan McFarlane, Tim, talk us through it.
Well, Seb, they're all looking good right now, but just pushing, and I do wonder, ran it in a bit too deep, trying to swing it right around the outside of the Porsche, and that's what caught him out. It was a nice bit of a glancing blow, well, a bit more than it was a bit of a thud, but it was side on and looked like the wheel straight when McFarlane hit the wall. So that hopefully shouldn't be too much damage. There is Precision Racing Esports there in to serve their penalty. It's a stop and hold 1 lap penalty, so that's really putting paid. So would have been an amazing start by the Canadian Darian Roy. So 6th place is early on as yet again the LMP2s squabbling for position with one another while trying to get past the GT3s, and well, this time have been successful, Seb, but I get the feeling this is going to end in tears. There you go. Can he hold? Well, what a save. Freaks, sorry, of VSCA Motorsport, avoiding everyone, but it's cost them dearly. Seb, down to 9th, and oh, this is getting a bit clumsy where the GT3s, the Audi there, of Firestone Motorsport getting a bit of a compromised exit. You can see the flash of the lights, not overly impressed by that, because that now means they've got the Porsches of Fisher Motorsport. You can see him, the identical livery cars just in the background there, and now going to be all over his rear end.
Once again, seeing our sort of top 5 making mistakes. Unusual. Really, you expect, the top 5 to be the fastest and most consistent. It just goes to show how difficult Canadian Tire Motorsports Park is, and that's why, as drivers, racing fans, we love it. As this is the 77 GT3, Daniel Santos at the wheel. What's going to happen to him? So there's the 151 car going wide. So this is how he took the lead of his class. So a mistake from the 151 Ferrari. They had, looked like a 2 or 3 second lead. That's been eliminated. In fact, they have got the 13 of Maguire's team, Freude Motorsports, right behind them. So a three-way battle for the GT3 lead early on. Actually, I take it back. I thought I saw the Porsche there, but I didn't quite see it. So I do apologise. It's just a two-way battle, but more than enough for us to get some exciting racing underway. The 2 LMP2s getting past before the braking zone of the S's. So that's all done and dusted. Don't have to worry about them as we head through the final corner. Who's going to get the better run? The Ferrari has looked the better car so far this race. They took the lead and extended, but that mistake cost them dear. As that's a 79 car. Barker now up to 3rd, making his way fast. Causes, in fact, our GT3 leader to go wide at turn 1, but the Ferrari can't capitalise. You're not going to be able to go around the outside of turn 2, but you can set yourself up to go around the outside of turn 3 at Quebec corner, but there's an LMP2 on the inside, and Evan just backs out of that one, decides that it's better to survive this one rather than end up in a silly accident early on. 20 minutes of this race almost gone. Especially, you can see there, Tim, the grass coming onto the track on the entrance to Moss. So that suggests to me that a lot of the accidents that we've been seeing, turns 5A or Moss Corner, are happening because drivers are just running wide, getting onto the grass, spinning under braking.
You're exactly right there, Seb. You've nailed it on the head. It's been a treacherous corner. We mentioned Clayton and Moss would be the hot spots for danger. The run up, and you see also on the entrances, the S's there, where the drivers are just clipping the grass on the left-hand side and using that to just really open up the corner entry and get the car turned in a bit better, carry as much speed through there as possible. But what a cracking start here from Shamrock. Really 9/10 of a second clear of second place FPB, and some squabbling prototypes coming through. That's the 112 there of Rusty Spatula's Talk Freak racing Ascari right behind them, and they've got VSCA who are on a recovery drive, Seb. And they need to make light work and pass the 2 competitors in front of them as quickly as possible to not compromise their race. If you look at fastest lap, Seb, VSCA are actually 3 tenths quicker than the 2 in front of them.
Go.
Yeah, wow. But also 3 seconds quicker nearly. It's about good 2.5 on the last lap alone. But you say, Slipstream, This is going to be done on the exit of S's. Positioned on the outside, running right round, just holding on for dear life.
And Race for Cats race goes from bad to worse for them. Another contact. And do you think that, you know, they shouldn't have gone for the move there? Just sort of wait it out?
It's really possible, and it's actually one of the most ideal overtaking opportunities around Mosport. You hold on right around the outside. It's really possible, so we're going to see it from a different angle here. You just cling on right around the outside. You do a little bit of twitching there, as well as Racer Cat just cutting in a little bit, and that's what invoked the contact. But it is possible. It's a really good opportunity. You keep it around the outside, Seb. Then you're on the inside for the exit of the S's. I tell you what, that camera angle there really showing just how much of it's like a step up to the tabletop that is Moss Corner on entry, and really you can really see why the drivers are struggling. Maybe this is a track you haven't seen too much before, haven't driven. You can see that's why they are struggling in the braking. There's mistakes coming in because you're coming in, turning the car, and the car's fully loaded up to the right-hand side. Obviously, it's the left-hand corner, and then it's onto the brakes. Well, the car balance is all out of kilter as you're moving the weight around. You have to pretty much straighten the car up as quick as possible on corner exit before you hit on the anchors. Otherwise, you start spinning out of control, and that's what we've seen in these opening stages, especially where drivers are offline. There's a nice little battle ensuing here, Seb.
Kinetic Racing versus Talk Freak Racing. Talk Freak Racing behind. Hopefully they can do a little bit better than their teammates in LNP2. Of course, just talking about that incident, I think, though, different tables. They are trying to chase down Kinetic Racing through turn one. Talk Freak a little bit twitchy on the apex. That's going to allow Kinetic just to extend their gap. But in the background, we have the 396 car, FAC Auto Tech, looming large in the mirrors. Porsche versus Porsche versus Porsche. Ferrari in the mix as well, just to spice it up just that little bit more. And in fact, this group now, all of their squabbling, another group of three behind gaining on them. So they need to be smart here. They need to not always, there's almost contact as we head into the second part of Moss Corner. Concertina effect. Kinetic Racing actually have come out on top, and it's looking like advantage of the 396 car of FAC Auto Tech. They're in the slipstream. They've got the double slipstream. They've all got the same machinery. Who's got less downforce on their car? That's the only differentiator within their straight line speed pace. We've got the same machinery. Does FAC Auto Tech decide or want to go around the outside? They just want to play it safe, but now we have LMP2s getting involved on the action as well. A group of three. That's our race leader, Element Sim Racing Fire, trying to make their way through. As we head into turn one, you get a great sense of the speed differential between the LMP2s and the GT3s. What's worse for Element Sim Racing Fire is they've got a back marker LMP2 as well. That's somebody going wide. They're going to be off the track at the very least, hitting the barriers at the very most, but all while this is happening, they've separated this battle. This is the best opportunity now for Talk Freak Racing to get past Kinetic Racing. They're just alone as the Porsche now back in on this action. Tim, as we head up towards Moss Corner once again, who can get the better exit onto the Mario Andretti straight away? Looks like Element Sim Racing Fire just doing a great job. 11 seconds now separates them and second place Fisher Motorsports USA. Just going to get past the 211 car. Of course, that car was one of the front runners, but ended up with a stop-go penalty for that contact, as we have an incident between the Ferrari and the Mercedes. The Ferrari goes round at turn one, and the Mercedes as well just keeps it out of the barrier, so just car contact. Nobody's ended up in the wall, but that was the gaggle of cars behind the battle that we were watching between Talk Freak and Kinetic, Tim. And that's what could go wrong when you're racing in the pack. You know, it's so easy to make these mistakes, and what's happened to FPB Racing?
It is something. So it's the DRG Mercedes and the LTS Motorsport Ferrari there. FPB, well, another victim caught foul of the middle, well, the second part there, and getting the entry right of Moss Corner. But I think that's a change of position, so It's not good for them. Volmers, what for Element Sim Racing Fire, so what an absolute epic start that number 7 has had. As you mentioned earlier, Sam, 11 seconds clear of the second place. Well, all the action has been happening behind him. Volmers has just been keeping his head down, putting in lap after lap after lap, grinding away to extend that gap, keeping himself out of trouble. But what this now means, Seb, is that when it comes to traffic, there's no urgent rush to clear them. Now, in turn, that invariably makes you quicker, which I know sounds a little bit counterintuitive. However, does this mean you then pass more safely? You're not taking as many risks, which it then becomes a much more leisurely and calmer affair for all involved. Yourself, as all there we go.
It's in the wall.
It's like literally like Seb. Nobody wants second place in LMP2, and that's wedged in the wall, Seb. That's not going anywhere.
Disaster for Fisher Motorsports. They've managed to get it out. I don't think I've seen, if anybody knows iRacing, you know how easy it is to get caught in the barriers and you can't get out, but Fisher Motorsports, whatever they've found, it certainly works out for them. You're right, it does seem like second place in LMP2 at the moment seems to be a poisoned chalice, and Cameron Barker, CMS Racing Pro, now inherits, I should say, second place. Fisher Motorsports down to 10th, but it's a long race, Tim. We know that you can come back through the field. 2 hours and 10 minutes to go.
Does he want it, Seb? It's a poison chalice. We're on board with Fisher. Let's take a look at what happens. Ran it in too deep, Seb. Ran it in too deep. Too much speed. And that's it. There is nowhere to go. And I'm surprised he managed to get it dislodged from the barrier. The only time I've seen someone who's had it properly wedged and managed to get it unhooked was Formula Renault 3.5 top split event. Obviously, I covered with yourself recently at Imola. The driver basically drove it along the wall, like the front left being literally completely and utterly hooked inside, and managed to free it that way. Obviously, that not being an option here, especially in that section of the barriers at Mosport. I'm surprised he managed to get the one free and up on his merry way. However, cost him dearly, down to 10th place. Question is, Seb, now how long can CMS Racing keep hold of that second before they have an accident? Because it seems to be anyone who gets there, it goes their way. But it does also mean, Seb, that World of Sim Racing, who did hold second, had their own issue, fell down through. Amazingly, they're now back up into third.
Incredible, absolutely. You know, incredible, and it just goes to show how, you know, you need to stay positive within the car, because it can all change around in an absolute heartbeat. As you were saying there, that pressure that you're not feeling when you're in the lead by, you know, 15.5 seconds now is so vital, because it did sort of feel like, you know, the number 14 car was trying to push through turn 2, trying to gain that lap time, and it ended up, as we saw, in disastrous fashion. Cameron Barker, though, needs to be as careful as he can possibly be. Just tiptoe around the lap, just inch, you know, sort of delicate, just movements on the steering wheel. Just try and keep that car on the track. Is he the one to break the curse of second place? A little bit of a flash of the lights to get the 438 LMP2 out of the way. That's P12, that's Black Dove Racing, already going a lap down to second place. Of course, we've seen many dramas, most of them in turn 2, or turns 5, in fact. Yeah, not the start that you would have wanted if you are Black Dove or a Black Dove Racing fan. Still, 2 hours and 10 minutes of racing to go. Cameron Barker through turn 1 now has to get past the 66. Porsche does so very easily. Who's that in the rear? That's the World of Sim Racing team car looming large in the mirrors of Cameron Barker. Last lap was separated by about 0.8 of a second. Barker a little bit quicker than World of Sim Racing team, but we've seen how traffic can affect the ebb and flow of multi-class racing. We see a battle for second place. Well, first, Danny Fonte has to get past this lap traffic, the 438 car. 12th place, he just needs to ease by them and lose as little time as possible. And it's so difficult, Tim, isn't it, to lap, you know, a car of your own class, especially if they're not damaged and they've just sort of had a spin, but they're fine, because the pace differential is so little that it can be really awkward to try and get past them.
It can be, indeed, and so obviously white doves, they symbolise peace and, you know, love, and black dove, it symbolises obviously overcoming a limited belief and a bit of anxiety and disbelief. Well, I think you couldn't have a much more symbolising name for black dove than how their race start has been. I'm so unlucky for them. There's quite a few drivers as well have had their issues. You really see the grass starting to come onto the track there, and the entrance into Quebec corner on the left. Well, the left-hand side of the track would have been the right-hand side of your screens as they approached it. But you talk about those, obviously those overtakes, and Seb, you're absolutely spot on. It's so much more challenging, and that's where you need a bit of compliance and a bit of goodwill from your competitors that you're coming round to lap from the same class. It's actually more beneficial to yourself being a lap car to allow them pass and tuck in, because invariably you can utilise them for slipstreaming, and you know, maybe if they're a faster car anyway, naturally pick up some of their lines and just allow them to tow you along and drag you along, which can close up the gap to the car in front of you. As Disco Motorsports BMW having a bit of an excursion there. Stu Leslie, the Canadian, have been hoping for a much better run in his home circuit in the championship, and that is one bruised and battered front end of a BMW M4 GT3. The only thing we could have worse for it, Seb, would be for the front bumper to not be there, but it will affect their top speed. But finding there's no suspension damage underneath and no floor damage, it will handle, you know, pretty well. And for the majority of the circuits, just where they are now, the Andretti, my Andretti straightaway, that will really compromise them.
Yeah, the BMW actually one of the most susceptible GT3s to damage. If anybody was driving the Nürburgring 24 hours in iRacing a few months ago, you'd know that the BMW, while the quickest car, was just, it runs so low that you'd end up sort of bumping the floor against the ground a lot and picking up damage. So yes, it's not unusual to see a BMW with a little bit of damage, but what I worry for Disco Motorsport, and I'm not going to say this is the case because you know, you don't know the exact pattern of damage, but damage to the front end can affect the cooling. So Disco Motorsport not out of the woods yet. The number 7 car trying to lap them once again. Just you can see how easy it is for our race leader. No pressure on them whatsoever. Just sort of indicates where he's going to go. Pulls to the inside. Doesn't have to make those dives or those late braking maneuvers. He just simply can get by whenever he feels that it's the safest to do. Absolutely just perfect dream start for Sim Racing Fire. But of course, we've got 2 hours and 10 minutes remaining. We have another drive-through penalty for the 211 car, Tim, and that's once again the same car that ended up getting a penalty for the first lap accident. Now they're on 2 penalties this race. It's gone from bad to worse to disastrous. So we need a word worse than disastrous, because disastrous was when they had 1 penalty. Now they've got 2.
I kind of really feel for Darian Roy, who's currently wheel of that. Had an absolutely epic start, Seb, to this race. Made up 6 positions, got as high as 4th place, I believe it was from memory. There's all rusty spatulas. Wow. Grazing the bodywork that much, you might scrape the paint off and incur some rust over time, but bumbling along. That's custom another place, trading paint, heading past them too. They've headed down all the way to 11th after that bit of an excursion. So it's all looking good here. It's the replay. They're on the right side of your screen, right around the outside. Exactly as I said it all. There you go, contact. That's how it was done. Oh, and that was a
high speed.
Wow, and a big thud and big impact with the barrier, Seb. I do have to wonder what that's done in terms of steering damage. There's damage to the engine cover on the left-hand side, the side pod, the front bumper. Plenty of new body panels required on that car. And I just have to wonder, Seb, how that's going to be affecting them long-term. They're going to string this out to this pit stops. Well, we're not too far off the pit window for LMP2, Seb. So I'd imagine they're just going to hold on for the next few laps, brave it out or possibly even piss a couple of laps early and then rely on a safety car. But tell you what, these three, they've been having a nice little scrap for the last few laps. Talk Freak, Hometown Hero, and Sim Racing Grid Seb. We keep half an eye on them, and the gaps have remained pretty stagnant between them. No more than 7/10 of a second covering all three of them. Well, there you go, Rusty Spatchers, they're in.
So damage in forced stop, but luckily for them it occurred just as the pit window starts to open for the LMP2, as you rightly said, Tim. So it's not too damaging for their pit strategy, but that'll be quite long in the pits. As you said, Tim, a lot of body panels required. Hometown Hero a little bit wide for the first part of Moss corner. Got the BMW to get past. It's 23 of Sim Racing Grid tries to get past Hometown Hero Racing. The gap between Hometown and Talk Freak extending to over a second. So Talk Freak have run off. I think that Audi might have something to do with that. Just Talk Freak getting lucky with the traffic and separating the gap. So if you are 23, if you are Sim Racing Grid Moist, if you're damn it Farland out the wheel, this is your best opportunity to get by the car ahead. This is when you need to pounce. You know, Talk Freak, Hometown Hero don't have the slipstream from Talk Freak. Their advantage has gone down the straight. You need to pounce while the iron is hot, as the saying goes. Through turn 2 we go. Porsche up ahead, and I think Dan McFarlane now looking to make a move around the outside. He's setting himself up for a little bit of a go into Moss corner. Picks up a little bit of understeer. I think that possibility's gone out the window. Once again, Talk Freak getting lucky. Two cars now separating Talk Freak and Hometown Hero as we head into Moss corner. Talk Freak just running away with this at the moment.
Listen, you're saying about how Hometown not having obviously the slipstream compared to what Sim Racing have got from Hometown. However, due to the short nature of this track and also how spaced out the field is, they're never going to be too far away from getting the slipstream from a slower class car, which will not as benefit them as much as what Sim Racing Grid are getting. However, it will help them to defend. Also, for the more pragmatic multi-class drivers out there, what they'll do is they'll be incredibly clever. As all Fisher, they are into the pits, likewise trading paints to Seb. But what they'll do is they'll position a car of the alternative class between themselves and the car that they're battling with, going through a corner. Now, why would they do that? Well, what that does is it means that it just creates a natural bit of a barrier, as that is your leader in 2, Seb.
Our first non-damaging force pit stop. Race leaders number 7 pulls the pin first. So they're going to be all the way down the very end of the pit lane. The prime pit box. They qualified the fastest out of any class. Who's that? The 51 car goes through. Barker now into the pits. The 51 car extended their fuel by at least a lap. World of Sim Racing team that only had a great stint. First stint managed to fuel save while doing so. Now, do they take tyres? Do they feel like they need to take tyres? The track temps were high in qualifying. They're high in the race, but just looks like nobody wants to pull the pin on the tyre change. Of course, it's about a 15-second loss, and then you've got to warm the tyres up. All of the issues that come with it. Yes, that's the number 7 car taking tyres. Tim, a little bit surprised by that decision. Maybe just because they've got such a big gap, they feel like they can do that. And we'll watch now and see, will the second place, the 79 car, will Barker also jump up on his jacks? And he hasn't, so this is a change for the lead. At least the lead by default. CMS Racing Pro decides not to take tyres. Elements in Racing Fire do, so they're down into second place, or at least they will be one. All of the pit stops play each other out. An interesting strategy playing themselves out here, Tim.
Seb, it's, for me, it could make a bit of sense because although, yes, they have lost time and track position to World of Sim Racing coming in there to the Hometown Hero Racing team. Joshua Wilkie currently on board, them Canadian. But what it does mean is that they can go again, and track temperatures, they have crept up again, Seb. So we have got let down to high to mid 30s in Celsius. That's around about to low 90s in Fahrenheit. However, it's crept up again. We're above the 100 mark in Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius. It's back to hurting the drivers, and still got 2 hours, well, exactly left here at Mosport. So be an inspired move from them. Just get some fresh rubber on, go again, and push hard against the competitors.
Ooh. That's not where it should be. Oh, and he's blocked the pit exit. Going to have to be an avoidance maneuver there from the World of Sim Racing team car. That's Hyper Racing reversing on the racing line. Not what you want to see. 17 car also having to take avoiding action, but that could have been, oh, so bad. That could have been a mega accident. We've already seen one car fly at almost that exact point on the track, Tim, and I was almost certain that we'd see the same thing happening again.
So I was holding my breath there. But, oh, no, that's the RTS Ferrari. Because they were involved in a bit of contact earlier on and just having a little bit of an excursion off track at Moss Corner there. The B part, the second corner. It's clear they're turning, they've carried straight on. However, that's not going to be helping them until they've lost time. They were in a bit of a battle with Fisher Motorsport, Eagle and the Porsche. Subsequently, they found themselves 4.3 seconds behind them.
The World of Sim Racing team car. Looks like they've also taken tyres. 51 LMP2, so they obviously agree with the strategy of our former race leader, the 7 car, but Barker helped by himself. The gap between himself and Neil Sundridge. So actually, they changed drivers as well, Tim. I didn't quite catch the name of the driver through for the 7.
Yes, the elements have changed drivers. Apologies for me having a bit of a stutter there. So it was Volmer who was, of course, on board for Element, whereas Hundhedge has got into the car now. So that's all. We've had a bit of a big incident. There's a slow Lamborghini. Oh no! And that is a spinning LMP2 there. That was the 23. That's McFarlane. Oh, he's had. Oh, well, if he didn't have any luck, bad luck, Seb, he would have no luck whatsoever. McFarlane, as he lights up the rears in anguish, frustration, and gets it going again. But I did see there was quite a few cars involved, so something's happened here. So there is the Audi of Firestorm. They've had a bit of a racing incident there against the Real Pixel Motorsport BMW. They're sat trying to get going again, and oh no!
Oh. That's the 16 car and also involved as well. The Porsche gets off fairly scot-free, the Lamborghini, and then it seems like McFarlane's Sim Racing Grid Boys have just sort of had their own spin in the background, their own incident, a sympathy spin, as it were.
Well, they've come flying around the corner, Seb, and then just been presented by accidents all suddenly happening that we've been completely blinded to, where they were following the traffic through the... Oh, there's the LTS Ferrari having another incident. That's on the exit turn one, that's by the pit exit, I do believe. Oh, I'm just trying to... That is, yes.
Yeah. Oh, and the 77 car's coming through. Thankfully, the 20 car saw him. He started drifting to the outside of the track and once again could foresee a huge accident on the entrance to turn 2.
That was our leader, wasn't it, in GT3, Seb? And
it was
trying to make FPB, trying to make light work of them. They're trying to hunt down Santos in Shamrock right now. That 2.67 gap and trying to clear the traffic using the lights. Bit of a handy tool in some ways, but equally as well, Seb, if you feel the frustration, you can feel it up here. Starting to boil over inside the cockpit. I expect to see another flash of the lights on the exit. Out of Moss and up the Mario Andretti straightaway. They're hoping to dispatch them clearly. Ferrari's strength is its straight line speed, and the foot of that FPB Ferrari be fully right through the floor as they head up the hill. Get the move done, but they have lost a bit of time. Ran about 6/10 to Shamrock, where they had to clear that traffic, and oh, there's the race for Cat. P2 having a bit of a trip off track, Sam.
Yeah, not the first time we've seen the Race for Cat Motorsports car end off the track, but not what they want on their recovery drive. Seems like everybody's just struggling out there at the moment. Once again, Race for Cat a little bit wayward on the entrance to 5B. Manages to collect it up before the exit. Not a huge loss of time, but certainly not a confident gainer for the VSCA Motorsports entry. Oh, and there's a huge accident. That's 3 cars off. Torque Freak, Kinetic, and the race leader, the former race leader, the number 7 car. So Hundhedge getting in the car. They took tyres. They had it all going their way. 15 seconds. They led by the race at one point, and now made contact. I think that's on the exit of turn 1, is it, Tim?
It is.
That's the pit exit. So what has happened as we get the replay now? What is going to occur? This is the final corner across the start-finish line. This is turn 1. What's going to happen? Hundhedge goes to the inside, connects with the Kinetic racing car. Torque Freak, the innocent bystanders in that as well. And oh, what? I mean, so easily done, but it just seemed like the number 7 was just a little bit too optimistic on the entrance to turn 1 there, Tim.
But the Kinetic Porsche just didn't see them and didn't anticipating Element going for a 2-for-1 deal into turn 1. Oh no, that's Sim Racing Grid Moist into the barrier. That's on the entrance into Mosport.
It feels like there is some oil down on the track. Of course, I think it's just the track temperature. Is that your guess too, Tim? That the track temperature is just playing havoc, or
it is?
I mean, what is going on?
It is. It's like the higher the track temperature gets, you'd think that it would make obviously the tyres on the car become more sticky. Of course, you know, when you heat something up, it becomes sticky and more tacky, which you think give it more grip. Well, actually, it doesn't. Once it gets above, well, certainly above 30. And once you get up into the 40s and the 50s, it feels like driving on ice, Seb. You have to be so careful, and when you're battling over incredibly minute margins, we saw it in qualifying. 2, 3, 4 places being separated by under a tenth or two. That this is where it gets incredibly tricky. The drivers are pushing to the absolute max. As just see, that's a change for position and the battle for the last place on the podium, Seb.
Certainly, Tim. Torque Freak Racing Academy getting past the 17 car of AG Motorsport, so they're up into 3rd place. The benefactors of that incident with Hundhedge, the 7 car. Element Sim Racing Fire making that mistake into turn 1. Also easy to do, but it just goes to show what a knife edge motorsports are. One minute you are absolutely winning, everything is looking peak and rosy, and then I think it goes wrong and you end up down the order with it all to do. 24 seconds though separates the 7 car from the leader, Barker. It's like that decision to stay out proved very, I mean, yeah. Actually, that's an interesting point there, Tim. If Barker had come into the pits and changed tyres, just like Hundhedge had done, he'd have been sort of around that same location on track where that 7, ended up having the incident. They could have been involved in it. So it almost seems sort of quite fortuitous that they didn't take tyres. They managed to stay out because they were, halfway around the lap when the incident happened at turn 1.
I think they may well have been. Well, actually, no, because obviously Hundhedge had had that issue, hadn't he, earlier in the lap prior. So you're absolutely smack on there, Seb. They would have been caught up in that. And I mean, hindsight, powerful thing. Another car in there. Would it have played out differently? We will never know. But this is the crucial thing. It's hurt Element so badly. From a commanding lead at the front, they now find themselves down in 2nd, so 7th even. The positive from this, they have changed tyres, so they'll be on much fresher tyres compared to the rest of the field. However, they've dropped out the top 3, and that's what's hurting them so dearly. And also, VSCA, who they were obviously did also change tyres, aren't that far down the road behind them now, and they did have a massive lead over them. So it's not going the way that Element would have hoped for.
You can certainly agree there, Tim. Lots of stories of drivers not having the start to the race that they would have wanted to. We're approaching the 1 hour mark into this 2 hour 40-minute race. So it's gone from, thinking that, well, it's just the start of the race, we have enough time to recover all of our losses. We're now getting into that crucial time where that stops being the case. You need to be inch perfect every single lap, and Element Sim Racing Fire coming into the pits, and what can only be for damage repairs. Clearly too much damage on that car to continue in any form of fashion that's anywhere remotely close to the pace that they were running earlier on. They stop in their pit box, the first out of everybody, and it went from being such a good reminder of their race to almost an extra sort of stab in the back, because you feel like, well, I was on pole, you know, I could have had it. Every little bit just sort of hurts a little bit more. And you've been leading the race. McFarlane now up to 10th place. They take over from Element Sim Racing Fire. Shamrock Sim Racing, though, has had a fairly mundane race, as it were, and that's a drive-through. Oh, huge accident on I think that might be the exit of Turn 1 once again. Oh, that's the FPB Racing. More cars contacting.
Look at how much that Porsche is crapping. There's got 5 wide almost there, Seb. There's cars everywhere. And that could have been an even bigger incident as Maguire's Porsche trying to crawl this home, but that's going to be an absolute handful. But they're holding up everyone else who are trying to dart into the pits too. Oh, Seb, that could have been far, far worse than what it was, and it was bad enough as it was.
It would be interesting to see if we can get a replay of that, because that was our second and third place in GT3. We're coming into the pits now and asking, you shall deliver. Thank you very much. Really interested to see what's going on. And we have a full course yellow while we're seeing the replay, Tim. Full course yellow.
Oh, Seb, you've got to feel for the guys, because they were the innocent bystanders in that. They saw the incident, swerved to avoid it, just lost, I think they caught the grass and lost the rear end, and ended up making collision that didn't look too bad, but what it did was it broke the suspension, Seb. There you go. The LMP2 hitting the GT3, so it can't started off that Constantine effect, and there you go. They got onto the grass. You just saw them cut through the picture. That caused them to spin, caused that collision, and that's why Maguire's are crabbing heavily. You can just see them in the distance, looking like they're almost drifting. They're trying to grip hold the car to keep it in a straight line. Chris Van der Nies. So let's have a look. This is we're going to see here. Oh, right. So the slow-moving Porsche, I think it was, on the right-hand side, Seb, FPB pulled out to get past them. The LMP2, obviously unsighted of that, they're coming through at a much faster speed. You can see people taking to the grass. And you've got to feel for FPB and Maguire's, you know, Clowns to the left and Jokers to the right, and there they are, stuck right in the middle with each other, with damage, and being hurt so badly. And with this full course yellow, that's going to play to their advantage to try and get as much of that damage fixed, sorry, Seb, before they lose too many laps.
Certainly is playing into their hands as much as it possibly can after that huge accident. I think, though, I think, Tim, you'll agree with me, that's more than sort of 5 or even 10 minutes damage. That was heavy damage to all of the crabbing cars. That's, you know, front and rear suspension needs replacing. You're going to have bodywork as well that needs to be getting rid of. Actually, you see the Lamborghini there just in the shot. He absolutely was so lucky, just sort of planted the throttle, went through the middle. You know, the old saying racing drivers had, aim for where the car is at the moment, because they won't be there when you get to them. And that certainly proved right for the 94 Faster Esports, certainly going faster through the incident. But what has happened in this race? It's been blown wide open with not even an hour elapsed in the race. 46 laps completed. And what are we going to be in for the remaining 1 hour and 30 minutes? Has worked out, though, for the 7 car, the Elemental Sim Racing Fire car, Tim. You know, they were our race leaders. They had the damage, and I was just about to say before the incident that they really needed a full course yellow to bring them back into the mix, and I think they're going to get that. We have Robin Oosting there, the DSRT car Ferrari, and Hack Racing, the beneficiaries of the incident. They're up to second, the 111 Ferrari. Christoph D. May at the wheel of that car at the moment. they have benefited so majorly from that.
So this is on board, Seb, with Hacked Racing. I imagine it's going to show us a different angle of exactly what happens. And there goes the LMP2. Right, and this is the one that made the collision that started it. So here we go, just keep an eye on the distance. It's already spun and, oh, full chat. But if in doubt, keep it pinned to the floor. And Christophe de May, wow. I'm surprised he's not going much slower today, he said, because I'm sure his kahunas, as the Spanish would say, are weighing him down, where he kept the throttle fully pinned in there. And it just seemed to open up for him like Moses parting the seas. And how lucky, because that could have all been gone so badly and so wrong. But the big lead that Shamrock said had in the lead of GT3, it's now gone.
Yeah, it cuts both ways. Does this full course yellow? You can gain and you can lose, and it certainly seems like the 77 car is one of the biggest losers. I have to say that the 79 car, the leader in LMP2, they didn't have so much of a gap, so it's not super damaging for them, as we now have our wave by session. Actually, we've done the wave by, so now we are lapping. We're doing our lap, so everybody now can decide if they want to pull into the pits, take this cheap pit stop. You only really lose track position, you don't lose any time. So we'll watch the pit entry closely. So that's one of the cars, that's the World of Sim Racing car into the pits. They were in second place, and I hazard a guess that they're going to take tyres. They didn't in the first stop, and I think they'll certainly be popping up on their jacks. Daniel Santos as well comes in. This is actually a perfect time for our GT3 runners first, second in the pits, and I assume that we're going to see all of our GT3 leaders heading into the pit lane. We're not going to have much fuel left on board, if any fuel at all. After 57 minutes of racing, there's a little bit of contact as they all enter into the pits. Seems a little bit pedestrian at the moment.
It does, Seb. But the car's actually running. Obviously, we've had 3 retirements so far. Flex Mosport, Wolf Mosport in the Ferrari and LMP2 respectively, and of course the Money House Racing Black Mercedes. There were only like 5 cars that did not take to the pits. Now, hold on, Seb.
They've
just driven through. They haven't actually stopped. I could have been they've missed their pit box here, Seb.
Yes, sorry, Tim. I'm a little bit dumbfounded. I think they have. I think they've missed their pit box. They came into the pits. They spent 27 seconds in the pit lane, but they did not stop. And I'm trying to see if they have. They don't have a penalty. And even if they did have any form of penalty, they couldn't serve it under the full course yellow. So what? Yeah. So I mean, a sort of a strategy, a blunder for them. We can ride on board with the BMW now and see exactly what has happened. Stu Leslie, it seems to be that any driver, any Canadian driver has not had the home luck that they would have wanted. So coming to the pits, everybody slows down, a little bit of contact, they get hit from the rear. That won't be doing them any good, and I think they're simply just gonna miss their pit boxes. It's going to be coming up soon, and yeah, so that's the leader of the GT3 pits here. So yeah, I think they've
missed. Look, you can see them edging in, Seb, trying to spot it, but due to the packed out pit lane, they've not been able to spot what it was, and they've just had to drive through. And the only car in GT3 not to stop, and that's hurt them so dearly. So dearly. And, wow, I'm left a little bit dumbfounded by that one, Seb.
It's a huge mistake for the BMW team. I personally did the same thing at the Sebring 12 hours, and what's worse is I ended up running out of fuel, and I hope for the sake that the 83 car has enough fuel at least to do one more lap. I think they've got a pace lap, and then we go back to green, and I think they might even have to take emergency service. So it's just disastrous as we start to have some wave buys. The 37 car gets the wave by, so we're now just rearranging the cars back into the order that they should naturally fall into. So We have Leslie, the 83 car BMW, in the lead of the GT3 field, but they are yet to stop, or at least yet to take on board any fuel. Shamrock Racing are our de facto leaders. They're second at the moment. Hack Racing third, with Fisher Motorsports in fourth. They've all changed drivers, so we have new names and new faces in all of these cars. So it is almost like a reset with an hour gone in this race. 1 hour 40 to go. It's like the race is started all over again. Tim, I cannot wait for this one to get restarted. It's so fascinating. We've got so much going on here. Oh, I'm so excited.
It's the great variable, this set, where it just throws everything up into the air and really reshuffles it. Interesting for me, Seb, was Element Sim Racing. See, they had already pitted. They'd taken tyres. Now, they've elected to come in. They've had a bit of a longer stop, 41 seconds. The average for if you're taking just fuel step is around about the 35-second mark. So they haven't taken tyres, but they have had a bit of a longer stop. However, they still come out 11th overall and in class. There they are. I would have thought they might have gambled and stayed out there. They've elected not to. They've elected to come in and to the top of the field so they can run deeper, but I thought they might have gone for track position over that free pit stop. So that's a bit of an interesting one, because that would have seen them promoted all the way up to third and brought them right back into contention after looking down and out. As we mentioned, Disco Motorsport, we feel for them, missing the pit box, and well, it's all going to fall apart for them. Shamrock currently showing up as second. Maida in the Porsche team driving for them at the moment, the Iberian. But his massive lead that he built up, and that team had built up, is now going to completely and utterly disappear, as they're going to have Hack Racing right at their tail. This intriguing Porsche versus Ferrari battle that's being played out here at Mosport.
Certainly, it's why we absolutely adore multi-class racing. We're going to get underway in a few moments' time. Just the stewards and the race control just sorting out everybody's positions and making sure that when we go live, everything is in order. Tim, how are you going to play? If you were in the car, how would you play this restart? Do you want to go out?
It's an intriguing question, this one, Seb, because the trouble is you've got right now is while the cars are sat stationary, the tyres are cooling. Now, with the high track temperatures, that could actually benefit some of the guys a bit more who haven't taken tyres, because that means then that they'll have a bit more grip available to them. But also, it's that break in momentum for you as well, where you build up that flow. It's a bit of a tricky one. So, and also now, you've got competitors where you might have had a decent gap between them, only be battling with 1 or 2 other cars around you. That's effectively, you've now got to looking in the mirrors and deciding how you play this one out. You're going to see people go brave, go bold, and go into full attack mode. And for me, I think that could well be a good opportunity for a few of the people who are out of position due to earlier on incidents to look for a bit of redemption and pick up some places easily and early on. FPB and Resolve, who were caught up in that incident we witnessed, Seb, they're still in the pits. However, Maguire's, amazingly, despite that horrific suspension damages, they've managed to get out again. They're down into 16th. Remember, they were up into like 2nd. Also, LTS and the Ferrari, we've seen that car in the wars a few times, but they've managed to get back out as well. Amazing stuff from them. Neither have lost too much time. To be fair, actually, apologies, they've lost a couple of laps, so not helping when they were on absolute flyers, but not all done, dustin'. All it takes is one more thing to happen, it changes.
Certainly does as we go green once again. Amazing start there from the 79 car, side by side between the 54 and the 23. As the 51 car, Waterson Racing car, they've been into the pits, they've changed tyres on the new rubber. Excellent grip for them, already up into 3rd. 54 car, Hometown Hero Racing, next up on their hit list, as it were. Oh, wide there from the 54 car, that's going to be in the wall. So that's already a place made up. A big mistake for Hometown Hero Racing on the opening lap. Going to drop all the way down the order. Hopefully for them, they don't have too much damage and haven't picked up any suspension damage. The rear diffuser though looks a little bit damaged. As we head into Moss Corner for the first time, fairly clean in the LMP2 field, only minor incidences, and Disco Motorsport in the lead. Great restart from them. The gap is up to almost 2 seconds, so amazing start from Disco Motorsport. Stu Leslie in the BMW, really making use of that low fuel configuration that he has on board BMW at the moment, but it's not going to benefit him in the long run. He's going to have to pull into the pit lane. The 43 car Talk Freak Racing Ascari are in the pits, and I wonder if that is for some form of penalty, or otherwise that would be quite interesting why they've managed to come into the pits. Not quite sure about that, but that's dropping them down the order. Talk Freak Racing Ascari. Joshua Wolf now going to come into the pits. I wonder if we have another. That just seems like a drive-through, so maybe that's incident point related. Of course, a low incident sort of limit in this race. But that's another car off. That's AG Motorsports, Mark Wilson. Oh, and Hometown Hero Racing goes off again at the same place on the track, 2 laps in a row. McGee Motorsports as well, racing off the grass, more like a rallycross race than an LMP2 race at the moment. Side by side as we head through turn 4, braking for turn 5. McGee ahead of the 54 Hometown Racing car. On the exit we go now. But a fairly clean restart, everybody underway. I do believe that Joshua Wolf, Talk Freak Racing Ascari, they came into the pits. Oh, there's a spin in the background. That's the 84 Porsche. Fisher Motorsports Porsche are going to have to find some form of reverse gear, which they do. 23 car as well in the LMP2 field, dropping down the order as well. They spun on the exit of the final corner. That's on the exit of turn 10. That's disastrous for them. They've got to be so careful. Find reverse, please don't hit anybody. No, they did a good job getting off the track. They find first gear. That's Talk Freak Racing, and is that the BMW? That's the BMW. They're still out of the race. Are they hoping for another full course yellow, Tim? Because I'd have thought that as soon as the full course yellow would have come in and they can come into the pits, they would, but they're still out there.
I'll tell you what, Seb, you were saying earlier about making use of that low fuel car. I tell you what, Stu Leslie, currently in the cockpit, is having the time of his life. Everyone's on maximum fuel. He's on low fuel due to a mistake, but he's driving it in anger, and he is pushing that to the max to open up a bigger gap as possible. And already, Seb, we've only been green for 2 laps. 4.2 seconds is the advantage over Shamrock Racing, who, let's face it, Hermida, the Iberian in the Porsche, is no slouch whatsoever, has commanded the GT3 class in this round at Mosport. But I tell you what, Leslie, I doff my cap to you, sir, because he is giving this as good as he can give to try and put the car in the best possible place. Are they going to come in this time? No, he's going again, Seb. But that car's got to be running on fumes.
I mean, it surely must be, and also to sort of, he's on worn tyres as well, Tim. Whether that's giving him the advantage in terms of not having to condition them. That's the 112 car, Rusty Spatula's round on the exit of turn 3, I do believe that is. Quebec corner.
Yeah,
we saw Hometown Heroes making the same mistake a few laps ago, and this time it's Rusty Spatula's to take the spin at Quebec corner. Drama absolutely going off at the moment. Down the inside looks the 52 car on the 396 Porsche. I believe that 396 Porsche has a drive-through penalty though for an incident responsibility that's just come through our system. Car 7 as well has the penalty, and I think that will beat him for the incident we saw at turn 1. The incident, I think, with Kinetic and Talk Freak in the GT3. So the 7 car will have to make their way into the pits again, and that sort of dampened their hopes of being able to make it back into the top 3. They're 7 seconds off the lead at the moment, but they're going to have to come into the pits. But as I said, the 396 car as well, as down the inside goes the 52 car DSRT, making their way up into 4th place before the apex of the S's, and Quack Autotech, the Porsche, pulls off into the pit lane, going to engage his pit limiter and sit idly 60 kilometers an hour, about 30 odd miles an hour down the straight, while all of his competitors just rocket past on the start-finish line. It's such a hopeless feeling inside the cockpit, and I do believe the LMP2 as well, Niels Huntej, at the wheel of that car, is also coming into the pits at the moment. There he goes. We see him join the pit exit line. So everything's starting to calm down now, Tim. Looks like the 77 car starting to gain on the Leslie and the BMW. Surely that Leslie's got to think about making a pit stop. Oh, and that's DSRT off the track at Moss Corner. I said it was all calming down. They're in the wall. Could not get any retardation on the grass there. Straight into the wall. The Ferrari goes. And oh, it's going to be such a tight rejoin, Tim. They just managed to avoid all of the cars. Don't quite know how they managed to do that.
Seb, this is the trouble in GT3 because you can see just in front of them there's the Fisher Motorsports Porsche that had the incident at exactly the same corner not too many laps. I think it was 2 laps ago. And where the GT3 field is still so tightly compact as Disco Motorsport, they're finally in, Seb. They finally had to succumb to a low fuel tank, and they've managed to find their pit box, which is great news. But they're going to come out, I would say, that car's still not even moving, Seb. So looking at it, I think they're going to come out pretty much right at the back of the main field.
They really need another full course yellow, don't they, to be able to get back into this fight. A little bit offset with their fuel run. They've managed to go 1 hour and 11 minutes into the race. Maybe that might play into their favour as we get to the dying stages of the race. Only time, unfortunately, will tell on that one. Race for Cat Motorsport, though, up into 4th place after all of the difficulties that they've encountered in this race. They feel like they've been on the grass more than they've been on the tarmac at certain phases of the race, but it's all working out for them at the moment. The luck is back on their side. Race for Cat, of course. Race for Catalonia, the little country within Spain. They want it to become independent. That's the reason behind their team name. Great cause, they think, and nice. It's always nice to know, isn't it, Tim, the reasons behind different team names.
There's always a bit of a story behind every team name normally. There's a few out there that are in there for a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke, and certain ones I'm sure that they put in just to try and trip up us commentators. But there's always good to know nice little stories behind team names.
I know the team that you're referring to that trying to trip up the commentators, and I agree with you. It's down the inside, goes Trading Pates Racing Team 19, dispatching that Porsche relatively quickly. 438 car, that's Maxwell at the wheel. They're back on the lead lap after all the dramas that they've suffered during this race as well. I think they were involved in that first accident that we saw at turn 2. Covering nicely, the full course yellow working in their favour. Definitely some winners and losers after that full course yellow. Of course, we don't know if we're going to get another one. Only an hour we were into the race when we had our first full course yellow, so plenty of time for another one to be called. AG Motorsport Mark Wilson at the wheel of the 17 car, the 23 car, they're trying to get past De Bauer on the run down towards the S's. It's got the inside line, got the extra speed, and actually AG boxed in there by the 396 Porsche. Ooh. Nothing they could do. That's the car off the track.
That's NR Esports Porsche there, Seb. Oh, and they were running so well after the round of pit stops, and oh, is that? Well, it's a bit hard to tell. I think it's okay. I wasn't sure initially if it was crabbing, but I think it's okay. Possibly a bit of steering damage for them as they get onto the track and then bury the throttle gingerly around the outside to allow the LMP2 through there.
So Tim, when we talk about steering damage, it's not the first time we've made reference to it in this race. What do you mean by steering damage? What do the driver feels when they pick up steering damage?
Okay, so what happens, Seb, is it bends the steering, or fractures the steering column itself invariably, or another way it can happen as well is the geometry in the suspension. Is that when you hit the wall, as you can imagine, the components are incredibly strong within the suspension, but only in the one direction in which they're designed. If you hit them at a different angle, track rod end is a prime example. Then it bends the wheels out of alignment. That's to get the car to run straight. Quite often, what you need to do is you just put in, oh, Seb, it's all gone wrong. There's a car sideways. As everyone scatters around to avoid one another. Albrecht, it's the car that was sideways in LMP2. And I think it was the Top Freak Ascari car as well that was going slow.
That's Race for Cat. Race for Cat, the number 10 car. What's going to happen here? Gets past the triple one car. Almost gets past the triple one car. Oh, and so unlucky for the 96. So close to avoiding that. Nothing that Race for Cat could have done. It looks like they had their foot firmly on the brakes, but just bounced straight into the path of the 96. Albrecht Motorsport, they're in a massive battle, I think, for 4th place, but that's their hopes dashed as the 52 car goes wide this time around turn number 3. That's Oosting's at the wheel. DSRT, they're in 3rd place at one point at the start of this stint after the full course yellow, but
also the Lambo was sideways on the entry to, there it is, Faster Esports. You can see the tyre marks, so I think they've caught the grass on the right hand side. Oh no, it's all happening. It's on the Porsches round there. That's NR Esports. They've had a spin. The Lamborghini lost it on entry. They caught the grass on the right hand side. I could see the tyre marks in the track set, and it sent spinning, and that's how they'd ended up where they were. But well, it's all happening, and you said it, you called it so right earlier, Seb, that it's calmed down, but then all of a sudden they kick off once again in the blink of an eye, and it's happening.
Hyper Racing team trying to capitalise. One of the Ferraris side by side as we head, sorry, one of the Porsches, they're side by side as we head into turn 2. The 85 backs off a little bit, concedes the place, maybe is thinking about getting the over-under and try and get past on the exit, or well, the 85 just thinking more long term, and I think that's where they're going. Fisher Motorsports Eagle ahead of us. We're on board with the Fitters Motorsports Porsche entry, so same team. Are there team orders in play? Team orders even exist in motorsports? Well, I don't tend to think, anyway, at least in sim racing, I don't think they agree. It's every driver for themselves, especially with a sprint race format as we ride on board and head down towards the S's once again. We're in the wheel tracks of the sister car. We're going to pull out, we're going to use the slipstream, in fact, from the LMP2 going past. That's lucky if you are the 84 car. I don't think there's team orders, but I think there might be a little bit of compliance with the sister car. Yep, there is, but the BMW tries to capitalise on the 85 being a little bit cautious, a little bit tentative into turn 8. Can't make his way through, but 85 has gone from defending from his teammate to certainly defending against a car that is not in any way affiliated with his team, the BMW, and actually the Porsche 396 Porsche looking racy. That's Pancaldi at the wheel. 396 car ended up coming into the pits for a drive-through penalty, so they're also trying to make their way through the field on a recovery drive. Back Autotech doing the best job they can. The 151 car has picked up a penalty, Tim. It's all happening out on track. It's certainly not exactly smooth sailing this race. We thought Mid-Ohio had drama and excitement up and down the field. This one's got it by the bucket loads.
Coming here, Sam, I did have to wonder whether this could be a bit more spicy of the two. Just the nature of the track. There's no real big braking zones to get overtakes done, and it means you have to be brave, you have to be bold and take on moves around the outside of traffic and against your competitors. And it's not narrow, this track, but it's not exactly wide either. Coupled with those barriers, concrete walls in a lot of places, be incredibly close to the edge of the track, that it really does add to the vulnerability that you put yourself and the car in, and it punishes one tiny mistake so dearly. And we're seeing it here being played out in real time. One tiny incident and you could drop 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 places within the blink of an eye, where you're left floundering, trying to get the car back onto the track, just praying that you've not managed to pick up any damage if you have hit the wall. Looking at what Shamrock have done since the restart, Seb, they had Hack Racing right on the tail. They've already managed to pull out 4.2 seconds gap. Also, Cameron Barker, CMS Racing, he's had a good restart too. 3 seconds clear at the top of LMP2 and our lead overall. It's really getting close between a lot of them. Further down the field, still a lot of micro battles going on, being played out here.
You see the 23 car get past the Mercedes into turn 1. Nice and cleanly. Kinetic Racing luckily up in 4th. And I say luckily, of course, they were involved with that incident with the 7 car earlier on in the race. So for them, they'd be happy to be sort of up at the top end of the GT3 field once again. So close to hitting the back end of that Mercedes as we head to the exit of turn 3. A flash of the lights there for good measure, trying to distract Yingling in the Mercedes. Not really going to do anything. These GT3 drivers are more than used to lights flashing in their mirrors, whether it's from faster GT3's Kinetic, very wide on the exit of 5B Moss Corner. As we head now up towards the S's, what can we do? Oh, that's wide there from Jordan Eriksson, Trading Paints Racing Team 19. The number 19 car. Turn 3, down the inside goes Kinetic Racing on the Mercedes AMG GT3. Yingling down to 4th, Campbell up to 3rd. It's Porsche, Ferrari, Porsche, Mercedes. We have 2 Porsches in the top 3. Mercedes demoted to 4th. But what does the 97 car think of this? Do they think they do have the pace to run? It's just the slipstream that's maybe keeping them in check, or some other reason. Do they want to fight this, or do they accept it and just run their own race and get them at the end? Different strategies playing themselves out at the moment. The gap, it's not even the gap, it's a car length between the two. Porsche looks a little bit more comfortable under brakes as we have the 79 car, our race leader, just getting by the pair of the GT3s. He's no longer a factor in this little battle. We head towards Moss Corner again, under braking. The Mercedes looks a little bit more stable actually. Looks like the Porsche's got better traction, but that Mercedes is so stable under braking. Front engine, of course, is the Mercedes. It gives it such supreme stability. It is the go-to car if you want a safe, stable car. The Porsche mid-engine's a little bit more tricky to drive, but you can extract a little bit more pace out of it if you know how to do so. We head once again towards the S's. The RG Racing Silver can't find a way through, so they're going to remain in 4th place as we head final corner to complete another lap of Mosport. 64 laps have the leaders have completed. That's Grant Yingling's 57th lap, or at least their team's lap, I should say, around this circuit. 14 car, that's the third place LMP2, getting past the pair of them as well. And FAC Auto Tech Sim Racing 396. They had such a good race. They had the luck after the full course yellow, but a penalty for them has set them back. They really need another full course yellow to get back into this race.
There's a few, Seb, that could do with another full course yellow out there. I mean, Element Sim Racing Fire could well be another one that could really do what they want to drag themselves into contention yet again. One person who would be desperate not to, or one team anyway, would be the Shamrock Sim Racing. And that would really hurt them yet again to see their lead erode, and how depressing for them after building it up before we had the first full course yellow, and then yet again as drive-through penalty for car 97 for causing a collision there.
Oh, that's for the Mercedes. That's for this Mercedes on the screen at the moment.
Oh no, it is.
After that battle with Campbell, they were running in 3rd. They're still in 4th. Benefactors, I should say, of the full course yellows we were just discussing, and that's all come undone for them. And they're going to have to take a trip through the pit lane. Disastrous.
Seb, Firestorm as well, another team that's really benefited in the Audi. Avery currently in the car for them at the moment. They've really benefited from this, and also CMS Racing Endurance in the BMW. What was pretty much a fight between Porsche and Ferrari at the sharp end of GT3 has really shifted in dynamic, and it's brought the Audi, the Mercedes and the BMW back into contention here. As we see, there is the Firestorm car. They've got a bit of work to do. 4 seconds behind Torque Freak in the Porsche that's currently ahead of them in 5th place in class. But equally, they've got a nice little buffer to the BMW behind them of CMS Racing, CMSRacing.com Endurance. Mark Johnson with them, and I do love the sound. The Mercedes GT AMG. It just sounds spectacular.
Of course, one of the last V8 engines left. GT3 Racing. I'm completely with you there, Tim. Be a shame when these engines finally phase out in a few years' time. Understandable the reason, but my God, do they sound good. So Jonathan Dance, number 6 car, Torque Freak Racing. They're looking at 4th place as soon as the Mercedes enter peeling into the pits to serve their penalty. And Torque Freak, after, just like Campbell in Kinetic Racing, involved in that incident with the 7 car earlier on, back into 3rd and 4th place. So they've had a great recovery drive. Actually, the Maguire's car as well. Was that the same car, Tim? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the same car that was crabbing down the straight only after the 4-course yellow? So they managed to be into the pits, repair. It seems like at least they're the most substantial of their damage, and they're out. We're running fairly decent pace. I mean, that 4-course yellow was an almost blessing for them.
Yeah, they have dropped 2 laps off the lead lap, Sam.
So I thought they were involved in the... Okay.
It's not been all roses for them. However, they are catching the Disco Sport ahead of them, albeit slowly. The work cut out to try and do so. Actually, no, yes, it's just over 2 laps, only minutely. Even so, it's a miraculous recovery from them. And Chris van der Nis, the Dutchman, who's currently, well, was in the car at the time, still remained in it. He's really grinding out some impressive pace. But having all that, well, not quite all that damage. You can still see a few scuffs on the bodywork, but he's not going to be too spinner. That was a 37 there, the Hyper Porsche. That's got that's finishing its bonnet, Seb. I think that's had a bit of contact with someone.
Has that had a bit of contact with somebody or a wall? I think
that's our leader in, Seb.
That's our
leader
CMS
in. Racing Pro car. Barker.
So Barker pitted, won that previously the time before. As Thomas Fisher comes into the pits. Sorry, Thomas Fisher gets into the car. And what has happened to the Hyper Racing team? Frederic on board and just lost the rear through turn 1, hit the wall. And that's where we picked up the images. So he hasn't hit anybody else, but a hefty hit to the front of that car. And we have a new driver into the 79 car, Thomas Fisher, another Canadian driver. Hopefully for him, for his sake, his luck is a little bit better than the other Canadian drivers out there. The home advantage certainly not ringing true for many of them out there today.
It's not been the best of home rounds for our Canadian drivers, has it? They've really suffered and picked up most of the bad luck that's played out here. Some of them, okay, you could argue more of their own fault. However, others, they've just been caught out of being the victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, Seb. Having said that, I mean, World of Sim Racing, currently leading LMP2, Seb. Remember, they were down and out. You practically would have written them off. Fell to the back of LMP2 after spin early on. Well, albeit, I know because CMS have come in and pitted, but look who's leading at the moment. What a great rags to riches recovery drive for them at the hands of Danny Fonte Pedra.
It seems to be the story of today's race at Mosport. The recovery drive and how well you can execute that is really going to determine your race position. Completely agree with you there, Tim, and I hope for the sake that World of Sim Racing are going to be able to, to continue their form. They've not had any luck at all today. They're going once again for another lap, and I wonder if they stopped. Yeah, they've been in the pits twice, so they stopped under the the full course yellow, I should say, while our former race leaders did not. Oh, there's a 66 car off the track. That's a VOPEX Racing Group. Andy Banfield at the wheel of that Porsche. It's not the optimal line there.
We haven't mentioned them too much so far today, so they kept themselves pretty much out of trouble until now, and can't even get blamed for the curse to commentator that, because that's picking it up after the event. So, bit of a shame for them. They're, oh no!
Oh, that's the Maguire's car. No, we were just saying, weren't we, Tim, how the Maguire's car was doing so well. They're into the wall, and was that related to their damage? Was the damage not fixed enough and it caught the driver out? It's a high-speed portion of the track, Tim. So difficult to get it right, and any damage can hamper your effect. And I think just to really rub it in, the number 13 car was also given a penalty at the same time. So not only do they now have damage to their car, they also have a stop and hold for 1 lap. So if it doesn't rain, it pours for the number 13.
I'm trying to make some pun currently, Seb. Obviously, Maguire's is a car cleaning product company, and about rains, pours, as oh no, talking about pours. Well, it's more than moist for Sim Racing Grid. Moist. It's a positive deluge of off tracks, and they've another team that's really suffered from the high track temperatures here today. There's Mark de Boer finding the gravel there. Yeah, unfortunately, Maguire's and rains and pours couldn't quite come up with a quick enough pun there. Sorry to disappoint you, Sam. I know you do love some of my lovely puns. Keep you entertained with.
Yeah, of course I do, Tim. Of course I do.
All right, one more time with a bit more enthusiasm, Seb. Cheers.
It always gets to this point in the race, an hour and a half gone. We start to go slightly mad. It's all part of the commentary experience, but you know, I want to pick up on Sim Racing Grid Moist at the moment. You know, they've had the pace, they've been up there. You know,
that's the frustrating thing, isn't it, Seb? And as so many of our LMP2s have, especially for second place. You say so many of them have had that raw pace, but just minor issues. It's what's caught them out as, oh, there you go, well, Sim Racing up the inside. Talk of the Devils. Suddenly pop through there and put a lap on Sim Racing Grid Moist at this early stage. I tell you what, they've had some really, really good opening laps under the pace car, because for them to be coming around and lapping them, oh, that's a bit of a special effort, to be fair.
Yeah, World of Sim Racing's pace has been absolutely mega. That's why they're in the lead. Of course, our former race leaders pitted early. I think World of Sim Racing made their stop under the forecourse yellow. So it's now a case of how far they can go and what pace that they can do. This is sort of the long overcut, as it were. But yeah, Sim Racing Grid Moist. I mean, it all started for them, didn't it, Tim? In qualifying, when they had the pace, they just couldn't string a lap together. We saw drivers just flying off the track, just making those sort of small mistakes, but it ended up costing them. And then you're slightly down the field, and we've seen some of the incidents that have happened today, where just by virtue of being down the field and involved in those incidents, that you can't avoid them, so you gain damage and you lose time. It's such a race of what could have been for the 23 entry. Of course, we still got an hour and 10 minutes left of racing, so anything could, as Murray Walker said, anything can. Well, in motorsport, anything can, and it will happen. But I think they're going to need quite a lot of luck if they want to finish anywhere near the top of the stands, timing stands. But hopefully that's the curse of the commentator in reverse. It'd be nice to give back to the sim racing community, because it feels like the curse of the commentator only works one way. Talking of racing, this is third and second place in GT3, 111 car, and Kinetic Racing Talk Freak as well, getting involved on the action. Meanwhile, the 77 car, Shamrock Racing, 7 seconds to the good in the lead. So this is Hack Racing, Kinetic Racing, and Talk Freak Racing Maggots all battling out. It's down the inside, looks Kinetic Racing. Hack Racing carries the speed around the outside. They're still going to be side by side. Actually, no, we're not. The speed that Hack Racing, they could pull in front of the Porsche before the apex of turn 2 through turn 3. Not really an overtaking opportunity here. Campbell now going to have to set his way up. Goes to the outside. So much more grip does the Porsche have. But what are we going to see? We're going to see a move down the inside into Moss corner. Kinetic Racing just back out of it this time. the Ferrari ahead of the two Porsches, but a little bit wide there through the second part of Moss's corner, and this is surely Campbell's best opportunity to make it past. They're side by side, and the Ferrari has no answer to the pace of the Porsche on exit. They're side by side, and I have to hazard a guess in by the time that we get to the apex of the S's that the Porsche is just going to simply just pull clean ahead.
I'm not sure, Seb. I don't think this is done and dusted, because that Ferrari straight line speed, look at how he's managed to get back in front. Just literally dragged that car, kicking and screaming, up the Marion Andretti straight away, and held on for dear life. But this isn't done and dusted. And how long before Torque Freaks in that Porsche at the rear of this three-car train get involved? Like, this could split them up as the LMP2 darts their way through and clears them all in relatively efficient ways there. But Torque Freaks, they're the dark horse in this, because they can make a bit of a move and pick both of their pockets if they're not careful. Kinetic, they're in the vulnerable position. They're in the middle. They need to try and make the overtake in front of them, but look in their mirrors to what Torque Freak are doing. Combined with, they've now got 3 LMP2s coming through.
Oh, contact! Contact! A misunderstanding, it seems, between LMP2s. GT3's lapping. Kinetic sent it to the inside. The Ferrari of Hack Racing unaware. Kinetic Racing come off worse. Down the order they go into 4th place. Tim, I think we're about to get a replay of the incident. Talk us through it from your perspective.
We are, Seb. So, all meek and mild, and the Ferrari ran it in too deep to allow the LMP2 through, came back across. A Kinetic saw the opportunity presented to them on the plate, went for the lunge, but Hack Racing, the Ferrari, just didn't expect to see them there. Made the contact. Oh no, that's Sim Racing Grid Moist, pointing in the wrong direction at the part of the track that you don't want to be pointing in the wrong direction. That is treacherous. So let's see what happened to Mark de Boer. All looks good through the S's. We know he made it through that. Now, is it the NR? Oh, so they've made contact there. Gone spinning earlier. So this is a secondary incident. So they've made contact coming through the S's, trying to overtake the Porsche there. Gets back up and running. Now, has he got suspension damage or some form of steering damage? Oh no, he just runs it right. It's as simple as that, Seb. And it's the NR Esports Porsche that you have the initial contact with, and then he's facing the wall, which is the worst possible place. He's managed to get it turned around. Ooh, edging back gingerly. I think he'll take a bit of a scrape with the wall to get it turned around. No, manages to avoid that. But Weatherfield is now so spaced out. This is the hard part of trying to get this car turned around and rejoined. Lights at the red, he's going to dump the clutch. Don't really get wheel spin from these cars, but managed to get it across the track. Ooh, it's treacherous, but gets it up and running again. And wow, real Pixel there, having a bit of an excursion too now, Seb. It's all happening. It all happens in one big cluster.
It does. It's the commentator's nightmare. Nothing happens, or not much happens, and all of a sudden you've got about 3 cars off at all different points of the track. But that is motor racing.
It's Paul Samuli I feel the worst for. He's got to try and work out in the production office which bits he tries and shows first. Well, it's all happening, and trying to keep an eye on giving us these brilliant pictures of what's actually happening live. And that man has, I think, not just eyes in the back of his head, in the sides and every which angle, full 360 camera in each eye. It's spectacular. Credit to him. And we see that Sim Racing Grid Moist. Well, if you wanted to sit airtime, Seb, they've gone the right way about it. They've been involved in great overtakes, incidents. They've probably shown them the most of everyone.
Yeah, I undeniably, I think about that, Tim. I think, unfortunately, as you said, it's for the wrong reasons. And watching about the coverage, I don't think they'll be quite enjoying seeing their car on the screen as they would have been if they were further up the field. But yeah, I think a race to forget for them. At least a race to forget up to this point. Whether they can turn it around, coming up to an hour to go in this race. Rusty Spatula's another one to have been a little bit unlucky. A few mistakes made by them. Oh, and that's World of Sim Racing, our race leaders, trying to make it 3 wide. Thought there was going to be an incident with the Mercedes, but thankfully backs out of it. Down the inside he goes of the 23 car, so that's 2 laps down. There's the 23 car of Sim Racing Grid Moist. Well, the Sim Racing team still out in the lead, yet to pit for their 3rd time, and it's the strategy of stopping under the full course yellow really helping out the 51 team at the moment. And you know, we were talking earlier, weren't we? And it didn't end up, you know, coming true for the 7 car. But the ability to, you know, they've got a 5-second gap between themselves. Oh, that's the 438 car, 4th place off the track, and that's in the wall. That is certainly going to hit the wall. We have a look on board, and they're stuck in the wall, the 438 car, Black Dove Racing. A miraculous recovery for them, and they've had to tow to the pits. Disaster. Disaster for Stephen Maxwell at the wheel of the car. We've seen other cars today get wedged in the wall, but they were unable to unstick themselves from the clutches of the tyre barrier. And that could well be their race done and dusted, Tim.
It was, wow, it will look like a relatively minor contact there, Seb, but clearly not.
I think that's sort of the worst of both worlds is when you have a relatively minor crash that ends up into the barrier because you don't sort of bounce off it enough. I think you sort of bounce a little bit and just get wedged. I think if you have sort of a, you know, a more of a major shunt, you bounce off the tyre barrier, it absorbs the energy and sort of bounces you back. But, disaster, absolute disaster. Car 10 has got a drive-through penalty. So that's
race
the
for
Race for Cat Motorsport, and if their race wasn't going bad enough, I said that I needed some extra words for disastrous. I think at this point we can call it cataclysmically bad for them.
Wow, cataclysmic.
It's a good one, isn't it?
That is a good one, and it's... well, I don't think you can describe it any better, to be fair, Seb. They currently find themselves 13 laps off the lead lap. It's not been a race they will be remembering, and they'll hopefully be looking forward to finishing this one out, getting to the finish line and eradicating it. We've got Fisher and Trading Paints in LMP2, second and third in class into the pits here, Sab. Now, I know what you're thinking, where's this going to bring them out? Well, Trading Paints are yet to stop. I can't quite see from that angle if their car is up on jacks. No, it's not. So Fisher aren't taking tyres, Seb. So they've got about 15 seconds left on their pit stop on average. I'm going to guesstimate they're going to fall potentially down. Well, we've got Element there into the pits now, so they're going to go below them. They could well fall down as far as maybe 7th, but I think that's too long a gap. There, yeah, there you go. It is up on jacks. Apologies about that, Seb. So that means, Element, there they've pulled up into their pit box. So that means they're going to be stopped for much longer. Over a minute. Oh no. There we go. Charles Trading Paints 2. Fisher have managed to get out and running. Come back out into 5th, Seb, but they have lost a little bit of track time to 4th place, which is David Koopman's. Sorry, apologies about that. Thomas Fisher, another of our Canadians, who's now lapped down. Can you believe it? Only 3 cars on the lead lap. A lot of that doing to with obviously where they've pitted. And our leaders, World of Sim Racing, are yet to do so, Seb. So that's why things are slightly skewed at the moment. And there is the leader, just coming up behind. That is the... I'm just having a complete memory block there. It's not... it'll come to me in a second. Rusty Spatulas, apologies about that. A complete bit of brain fade. I was trying to spot the livery. They're going to come in. There you go. That is our leader in. And Rusty Spatulas following them in instantly. Now this will reshuffle the pack due to the short nature of the track. And put them all back into line. Some of the cars will come back out onto the lead lap. They're going to remain pretty much as they are, I believe.
Yeah, so it's all about where does the 79 car come out, Tim? Because they were once our race leaders a few laps ago. Now they're on different strategies, and we see Thomas Fisher heading towards the final segment of the lap. Is he actually? I'm not. Oh, there's a car spun there, a BMW. Oh, another car, 2 BMWs spinning at turn 3. Almost, I think, the identical incidents that they've had NRE Esport and Disco Motorsports and Real Pixel Motorsports. Wolfgang, the 312 car at the wheel at the moment, having to do the awkward 3-point turn. Don't reverse onto the track, so close to an almighty accident. Luckily, I think it's more luck than more luck than skill that we didn't end up with another huge accident, while the sim racing team taking tyres as well. The 111 car has a drive-through penalty. Hack Racing, the Ferrari, and I think that's probably for that incident we saw with Kinetic Racing at Moss Corner. Obviously, we saw.
I think
it was so.
Maybe a bit harsh that one, Seb. I'm not sure. It was for me a little bit more of a racing incident, although they did not fully check into their mirrors. It's a bit of a harsh one. So, you know, some people might view that as being harsh. Others might view it as fair. It's one of those Marmite situations. You either love it or you hate it, and there's no middle ground. So that's going to really hamper them. It's a bit of a shame, really. It's going to disrupt and make them fall down through the order. So they're going to be absolutely gutted by that one. And it does now mean, Seb, 3 Porsches at the sharp end of GT3.
And there was some crashing, wasn't there, Tim, going into the start of this iRacing season, that the Porsche just wasn't going to be as quick as it once was even. At the moment, a top 3 for the German manufacturers. And then boosting in 4th, the 52 car, our highest Ferrari. Actually, the 78 car as well, CMS.com Endurance, our highest BMW in non-Porsche or a non-German car manufacturer that isn't a Porsche. They're in 5th. The Audi, who's kept it remarkably clean, the 29 car in 6th place. Talk Freak, though, in 2nd place. They've won the 3 previous rounds here at the VSCA Championship. They need to find some 8.8 seconds if they want to do it. 4 from 4. And interestingly, Tim, Kinetic Racing have been second to their first at every of those, or of the last 3 events, I should say. So Shamrock Racing, you know, they've had the pace today. They've had the pace all through the day. But if they make a mistake or you know, start to feel the pressure, they've got, you know, the 2 of the most consistent teams behind them in Talk Freak and Kinetic. It might be looking a little bit sort of done and dusted for Shamrock at the moment, but I don't think that battle for GT3 lead is over yet.
I don't think it is either, Seb. Based on how the full course yellow system works of accumulation of points, and how we saw one just before the end of the first hour, it has been a bit cleaner this second half since the full course yellow. I predict we will see another one before the end of the race. Now that's going to eradicate their lead yet again. They've got so hard to build up for the second time. Currently 8.5 seconds nearly for Shamrock Sim Racing. But that will then eradicate all that, bring everyone back into play. It does come down to a little bit of pit strategy. We'll be close to pit window time. I do have to wonder, will Disco Motorsport then be brought back into contention because of it? Well, we'll find out. I'm sure we will do indeed. If we've got 50 minutes of racing left here, I'm not sure where the last hour and 50 nearly have gone, plus qualifying. It's been an intriguing race, and just to keep you up to date on those track temperatures, Seb, I know they were playing a bit of havoc early on. However, they were still at 41 degrees Celsius, so they obviously did drop off. They have stagnated in the afternoon sun. Currently, local time in Canada, 3:10 in the afternoon. Ambient air temperature still 22 degrees, wind still practically non-existent. So I think it's more of a case of, oh, I was just about to say the drivers have got used to it, as Fisher Motorsport having a big moment, and David Koopman's holding on for dear life round the exit of turn 2. And, well, that could have been so close and disastrous to them after getting themselves right back into the contention.
A little bit wide through the first part of Moss Corner for good measure as well was David Koopman's. Very right on that one, Tim. A little bit close there, actually, to the 51. And let's have a look at their last lap times. Nothing spectacular from World of Sim Racing team last time by 1 minute 7.5. Let's see what it's like more in the clean air running conditions. You see Koopman's gained 1.2 seconds on lap 84 and 7.6 seconds on lap 82, but this time by World of Sim Racing extending their gap by 0.8 of a second. Now they're both in clean air, and let's hope that they remain in clean air for this lap to get a true sense of their pace. And oh, there's a huge accident. That's going to be absolutely massive. That's Hometown Hero Racing. They had a disastrous restart, running wide at turn 3 twice. And just as I said, Tim, when you have a big accident and you hit the tyre barrier, you sort of bounce off it. I do not know how that car has managed to get going again. That must have been at what, 150 miles an hour, something like that? It's huge. It's Disco Motorsport.
They've had that's down at turn 2. On the inside rather than the outside. Bit of a strange one. That one. Don't tend to see cars on the inside rather than the outside. Not being said, it doesn't happen. Interesting to see how that one panned out. Ooh, replay coming in. This might give some answers. Yes, it will. So here are Disco. Michael Garone in the car for him at the moment. Oh, just loses the rear end and nearly Tokyo Drift. But wow, a big impact with the front left into the wall. That's going to be affecting the steering capabilities. There's Hometown Hero off again.
I wonder if that's damage related. We saw that huge incident for them. I was at turn 1 as well, so they've completed another lap. Didn't feel like they needed to pit, and as soon as they've made that decision, they've scampered off the track and hit the wall. So it just seems for many teams today that if had the luck go against them, the old adage, if it doesn't rain, it pours, just rings so true. It's like, you know, we've just had the same team sort of being unlucky, making those mistakes, or those mistakes sort of being made for them. Nothing they could do. Race for Cat dicing a little bit close to the grass on the outside of turn 2. Clayton corner as they come out of the pits. Tyres will be colder, a little bit oversteering on exit there, getting past the 77 car. That gap between Hamida and Dance, first and second in the GT3 class, relatively the same, relatively stable, I should say. Oh, and that's Race for Cat round! Oh no! Oh, the 7 car has made contact. Another car's gone into the back of them. That's one of the BMWs. And what was I saying, Tim? If it doesn't rain, it pours. Torque Freak there, almost sideways, entering corner 5B, the second part of Moss corner. They touched the grass, managed to scoop up the car before any spin occurred. But, oh no, once again, it's the number 10 involved in. Oh, you just want to give them a bit of a hug, don't you? Just a bit of a, it's all right, the next one will be better hug, because that is just rotten luck once again.
I don't mean I could reach around and... Well, there they are into the pits. I've got a feel for him so much.
Sorry, Tim, just to cut in there. Have the number 10 team changed driver at all this race? Or has it been the same driver in? I mean, that driver's been in, it's Frexer in the wheel at the moment. I know he's been in for quite so. Oh, there's a huge accident. Sorry to cut in. That's the 151. That's FPB Racing. Where is that out on track? They've immediately towed back to the pit.
To Quebec, I think that is, Seb.
Oh, good eye, Tim. Good eye.
I think, yes, okay. So, heading through turn 2, Clayton. Gonna lose the rear? No. All looks good. Grass on the outside. There you go. Into the wall. And it's just you can see the brake lights are fully on. He's trying to stop the car careening back across the track, but he's just a passenger in it, Seb. The car will end up wherever it ends up as. No, the Firestorm Audi. We were only saying earlier about how that had been running really well. And then all of a sudden, Seb, one trip off the track and they lose a heap of time. They've lost the position as well. It's a real pickle of a race. LTS Motorsport. It's like someone's fired the starting gun for everyone to fall off track, Seb. There's LTS off as well.
So I've got a little bit of a suspicion here. Do you remember when Bernie Ecclestone was in charge of Formula 1 and he had the idea of sprinklers out on track just to spice up the racing? Is Bernie Ecclestone running VSCA at the moment? Because it just seems like at certain points in the race, the sprinklers turn on, the grip goes to 0, and everybody just slides off the track. It seems insane. I don't think I've ever known a race to have these like starts and stops of incidents. I mean, what an absolutely incredible and extraordinary race we are witnessing here today.
As you say, nothing for a few laps, Seb, and then all of a sudden, blink of an eye, boom. I do have to wonder, they've only got it on the LMP2. I was thinking, where obviously iRacing is preparing for rain coming to the sim, more and more cars are starting to have their windscreen wipers come on at random points during the race. And I know from myself, being an avid LMP2 driver, that it really caught me off unawares. I was in the braking zone into Parabolica at Monza and battling with someone. All of a sudden my windscreen wiper came on and completely distracted me. It did well to hold on to the car. I think it's only in the LMP2s. I don't believe it's made it across to all of the GT3s yet. I know it made it across to the German ones, didn't it? Because there was potential rumours of it coming along for the 24 hours of Nürburgring.
As far as I'm aware, Tim, it has made it across all the GT3 cars now. I know exactly what you mean by that distraction. Happened to me at the same time. Oh, is there so close to contact there between Paint's racing team and Albrecht. I had the same thing happen to me at Laguna Seca. I was in a race and windscreen wiper came on and I got very scared. Seems silly, but a windscreen wiper is a very scary thing when you don't expect it to move.
When you've had it for so long, not moving at all. As we see a duel and drag race up the hill, won by again Motorsports over Element Sim Racing Fire. Volmans is back in the car. Oh, now I was not expecting that one.
He's coming back into the pits though. Why is that?
I do not know, Seb. I genuinely don't know, because they took on a fuel tank of fuel as that's third place in GT3, the BMW CMS Racing.com Endurance. They're off, so they're pulling up again. I'm keeping my eagle eyes out for you, Seb, to see if that car goes up on the tracks. No, it hasn't by the looks of things from my angle. So are they swapping drivers again?
I mean, it's just interesting
the stationary. I don't know whether that's had a bit of damage somewhere and we've not quite managed to catch it, or it's not recorded within our software, because it is a very strange one. They're not changing drivers. They surely would have had fuel, and yes, that is still on the ground just about.
It's just, I mean, it's not a retirement. They've not come out and decided that, you know, the positions aren't worth it. They haven't got a realistic chance of finishing where they'd like. I'm not sure.
Well, they've not come off track, Seb, so this one has got myself as well as sure the viewers at home as well puzzled. They're still in the pits, so no driver change. The only possible thing I can think of is it's got some form of damage, and Volmans has tried it for a lap or two, decided, no, this is not for me, brought it in, decided to have it repaired, and go out again and try and salvage something at the end. Maybe throw in a few hot laps, but there's that's our leader in GT3. They are in.
Made the perfect mileage, haven't they, Tim? We've got about 40 minutes left to go in this race. More than enough time. But yeah, once they've completed that stop, they are done. And more than enough fuel to get to the end, so not sort of fuel limited. But, I mean, we could still get a full course yellow at this point in the race, and that could change everything on a dime. Johnson, CMS Racing Endurance, goes round again. Jan Volmers comes out, so that must be damaged him. I wonder, this is only a little bit of a guess. I wonder if they've had some damage. Volmers, you know, who drove the car at the start, knows the car when actually I don't feel like this car is as good as it normally is. It's come in to fix the damage, so maybe the second driver was just unaware of the damage, while, you know, as a driver that's driven it in what you'd think would be its best form today, that they've gone, actually, there might be a little bit of damage there. Racing side by side. Through we go, Tim.
I'll tell you what, Seb, it's really hotted up. We've got two intriguing battles being played out right now. Between second and third, fourth and fifth in LMP2. Really, really starting to sharpen up here, and we head to complete 2 hours and to the final 40 minutes, and started talking about this earlier, Seb, in terms of the traffic and utilising them as pawns in your battle. So what you'll do, that more craftier and savvy, street smart drivers will utilise both faster and slower cars to maybe box in opponents, position a car of an alternate class between themselves and their competitor, so they get a much better exit. Oh, that's Fisher Motorsports Porsche having micro excursion there. Manuel Mayer on board for them, and wasn't too sure if he's going to catch the 17 Eggy Motorsports LMP. Oh, that's
going to hit the wall.
He's going to save it, Seb. How with wow. Alexandra Butters, I tough my hat off to you for being able to save that one, because that looked like a absolute goner, Seb. Once you're out to that grass on the outside, you're hitting the wall. And how Alexandra has managed to save that one, I genuinely don't know. Luck, blind faith, skill, a bit of all those combined. Either way, she's not going to care one little bit, because that car's still up and running and it's still going and still in one piece. And albeit they are down 12th in class, but oh no, that's the Hyper Porsche.
Yeah, and it turn one, Tim. Again, it turn one.
Well, remember, Seb, yeah, of course, they were there early in the race, pointing in the wrong direction. There's, oh no, I might have lit up the rear tyres there and flicked it around, but
I think what's happened is, what I assume is happened is that, you know, all of these cars have got a traction control toggle off button, as you know, Tim. So what Frederick has done is he's hit it, but then had to wait, and that's timed out. So he started spinning the rear tyres, and then the traction control kicked in again, and it's worked against him because it just sort of arrested the slide, and he had to sort of do an awkward 3-point turn, and you never want to see that on a racetrack whatsoever.
There's no front bonnet on that, Seb, so it's clearly had contact with the wall. So this is Torque Freak there into the pits in LMP2, Seb. I would imagine Joshua Wolf is going to remain in the car. He hasn't jumped out, so I'd assume he's going to stay on board that and see how it close out this race. LMP2s, they're going to get, if they pit now, Seb, they will get home. I.e., they will not have to stop again. We have got some alternative strategies going on out there, and there are going to be some big gains and big losses. That's all I'm going to say. It's going to be an intriguing last 40 minutes here, because we've got the same, a similar-ish story as well in GT3 as well too. There's a lovely graphic just being showed right now in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, so you can see distinct lengths, and then in the bubble it shows you how many laps they were. Dave Fisher of CMSRacing.com Pro, currently leading overall with just under 40 minutes remaining. That team's had very even stops. You can see where cars stopped under the safety car as well. But it's that strategy, Seb, of not stopping under the full course yellow that's elevated them right up to the top. That graphic shows it there perfectly, where they haven't taken that extra stop, and then now leading, and also leading comfortably, 9.3 seconds, and exactly what they want to happen, because second and third are close to one another. They're battling it out. There is your leader, and there is that battle going on for second between Fisher and World of Sim Racing. As this looks like it's going to be, ooh, Seb, heart in mouth moment there for us, let alone what it would have been like for Del Olmo.
Absolutely mega save by the World of Sim Racing LMP2, and let's ride on board in what's like a roller coaster. Let's see what's going to happen. Coming in to turn 8, and we're going to get beached upon the curb, forced onto the curb. Car just beaches itself, and through goes the 14 of Fisher Motorsports. Superb move, I have to say, by Fisher Motorsports USA. David Koopman's at the wheel of that car, and World of Sim Racing getting involved in, bogged down in traffic. Oh, and this round, that's Disco Motorsports. Oh, ooh, so close to one of the Porsches, so close to disaster. But Disco Motorsports just ends up hitting the wall. That must have been millimeters, and that Porsche will be feeling very, very, very lucky right about now, Tim.
Off in the S's podcast from one side. There should be more off. off in Moss Corner podcast based on where they've taken that excursion. I think the S's is probably one of the only places that car hasn't been off the track. And, well, they were underdogs. The hands of Stu Leslie obviously had that issue under the full course yellow where they missed their pit box. And then, wow, what a drive from the Canadian. Just absolutely went for it. Hell of a lever. Opened up, I think it was around about a 4.5 second gap. By the time they had to come into pits, it would have been running on fumes. They're coming in for, oh no!
There's a car spun in the pit box! Disaster! That was one of the 398 cars, 39...
That's Spark Autotech, I believe, Seb.
It was the 396 car, I do apologise. So that's Spark Autotech, so they were coming into the pits. Have they spun on pit entry? Have they spun and ended up in the pit entry? Because...
They lost it on the... I just about caught it, Seb. So as they came in, they just lost the rear end and, well...
Disaster.
Spark were off.
Huh. Indeed. So, I mean, that car has not had it easy. You know, they had a penalty earlier on. They've made their way back up to 4th, but that's disastrous for their race. Really going to be a struggling reclaim. And let's have a look and see what's going on. It's averted from the screen.
So this is the entrance into the pit lane, Seb. So far ahead, it all looks innocent. And then I believe they've just they've locked up, caught the grass, and that's what's flicked the car around. Of course, Porsche 911 all the way in the rear, with the engine being in the boot or the trunk, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're from. And that's what sent this part of the cars at 90 degrees across the track so dearly.
More like a Tesco's car park than it did a racetrack there. That's my attempt at a joke for the day, Tim.
Do you know what,
I don't think it necessarily landed. Well, I'll take it.
I'll take that. Yeah, that was a good one. We'll work on that one. We'll let it marinate.
I think. Oh, see, well done. Well done. See, that's how a true professional does it. Talking of professionals, Thomas Fisher into the pits. Our race leaders, of course, they stop earlier on than the 51 car does, but you have to say that they will have enough fuel on board once they finish this stop to go to the end. About 33 minutes left to go in this race. So it is advantage CMS Racing Pro at the moment. And maybe some of that home luck might be worth it, although what has happened to the 79 car, and I think, Tim, they might have come in a little bit too hot. And let's have a look. Are they going to pick up speeding penalty?
No.
I think they're just good enough. Pushing right to the limit, though. That was a really good spot by our producer there. I think he was so close to getting a speeding penalty. I think he's just got away with that. But you're saying earlier, Tim, you know, Samuli has eyes in the back of his eyes, but that's an incredible spot that while he's looking for all of this action, he can spot when the car goes too, or almost goes too quick into the pit lane.
Oh, you say almost goes too quick. I would say time to perfection. Well, he's just spotted. He clocks the lockup, the smoke bellowing out. So great spot there from our producer, as always, who does such a marvellous job for us here at Apex Racing TV.
Indeed,
but
completely.
Thomas Fisher, this is game on for him, Seb, because he's just got to run it in here into the end and he's played the numbers game. When he came in, he had a solid advantage over Fisher in second place. World of Sim Racing, they are... Hold on, Seb. Oh no! That's the 5-star Maldi.
Alexandra Butters finally finds the wall after incidents earlier on. Lucky enough to keep it out of the wall, but that luck comes to an end.
There's been a change at the front end. So World of Sim Racing have actually managed to jump CMS in the pit stops. They were stopped for 15 seconds with World of Sim Racing. CMS stopped, so it's a stationary time in their pit box for 33 seconds. That is a big time to make up. They are now subsequently, World of Sim Racing, are 5 seconds ahead. Now, the killer question, have they got enough fuel on board to get them home to the end? 21 minutes of racing remaining, Seb. I think they have. I think they can do this. And I now believe CMS, I think they've overfueled their car as though that's a DRG Mercedes off.
I think you're right. I think you are, once again, Tim, absolutely spot on. I think the 51 car, by stopping under the full course yellow, you know, about an hour and 15 minutes ago, they've given themselves that buffer of fuel. They filled up, you know, when they could. And yeah, you know, we're thinking, well, I was at least thinking that it was, you know, home and dry for the 79 car. Fisher, you know, had the lead at the stops, but I think you're right. I mean, World of Sim Racing wouldn't have pitted unless they would have known that they could have got to the end of the race on their fuel tank. Whether they've got to do, you know, a little bit of fuel saving along the way, they might have to. But even so, I mean, the gap is at the moment 6 seconds. Although Thomas Fisher on this lap has already brought it down by about 0.4 of a second, and that gap is continuing, I should say, to drop. But yeah, I think World of Sim Racing have pulled an absolutely strategic blindsider to get back into the lead of this race. But what do Koopmans, what do, you know, in first, what do Albrecht Motorsports, Trading Paints Racing Team, our top 3, what do they have up their sleeve in terms of strategy? It's at least caught me completely off guard. Do they have any more strategic masterclasses to pull up their sleeve, like a little ace card? I think this race is absolutely wide open.
Do you know what, Seb? I do believe CMSRacing.com, they could have done with something like iRacing live timing. It's most up to date. Live timing available on iRacing and half relative boxes, mini maps, and also fuel calculators to adjust your team strategy on the fly and ensure that you have exactly the right amount of fuel in the car at the right time to get you home to the end at these tricky stages of a race. You can also use it to broadcast your leagues, like we do for all of our leagues here at Apex Racing TV. Hashtag just saying. Hashtag plug.
Hashtag, yeah, I'm again, I can't do the drugs. I mean, I'm just so engrossed in the racing that my funny part of my brain just switches off.
Exactly.
I tell you what,
just
though.
Dedicated professional, like you said. Dedicated professional.
Dedicated professional, just not funny while doing it. Oh well, we can't have it all. BMW in the background, flashing frantically, flashing their lights. When Alan P2 clearly dissatisfied with the service he got, or his lapping services. I think it's quite funny to call it. I need to find some humour, Tim. It's all going wrong. Half an hour to go in the race. At least one of us has got to stay sane.
Well, you are getting over COVID, so I will give that to you. But I tell you what, look at this, trading paints. Let's hope they don't end up trading paints with Albrecht. They're side by side up the hill, Seb. Well, we've seen, now this is what I was talking about earlier, about using back markers to box in your opponent, but they both clear the Porsche, the wounded Porsche, and wow, what a move there. On the inside, interestingly, from Trading Paints, not around the outside, which we've seen as the power play move, as Albrecht dive in there. Maybe I believe they were yielding a bit there. They made it easier for Trading Paints so they didn't lose too much time or get caught on the outside, and they couldn't get across into the pit lane. We've seen it happen before here, Seb, on Apex Racing TV, and I'm sure we will see it again eventually, but I think a bit of a wise move, played it safe there, did Albrecht.
The name of the game in endurance racing, isn't it? Play it safe, consistency, caution at times, and it can almost always reward you in the end. Torque Freak going through up into 5th place. Great recovery drive from them. They were nowhere earlier on, up 7 places from where they started 2 hours and 13 minutes ago, but not to be outdone. Their GT3 team took it just a little bit further. They're up 9 places from where they started. Incredible drive by them. They're in 2nd at the moment with Kinetic 2 seconds ahead of them in 1st place. The battle is most certainly on in GT3. Of course, the 77 car pitted earlier on, Tim. They were the race leaders for most of the race now. So Shamrock Sim Racing. We've actually got some drivers from the Torque Freak GT3 team saying that they think that Shamrock has thrown away the race win by pitting early. So is that going to come to fruition? Is that going to be true? Has Shamrock done everything that they wanted to and they could have done to win the race, but if it's all come undone with a simple strategy error. I think we're going to have to wait about 25 minutes to find out, but BMW behind. 78 car CMS Racing Endurance is looking very racy with Shamrock at the moment. That is our highest BMW driver at the moment. We have to go all the way down to 7th place now, Tim, to find a non-German manufactured car.
There's been a dominant force, hasn't it, the German manufacturers? I mean, if you actually look at GT3s in iRacing and Fisher's as well said, the Porsche has been the power car, the BMW, the Mercedes. So that's really leaned towards them because the only other new, in inverted commas, GT3 that we've had that has not been from a German manufacturer has been, of course, the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, which we had last year come onto the service, replacing the non-Evo, the Gen 1 machine. And, well, of course, like with anything new, it's heavily used. It tends to be a little bit OP. You can really see the marbles building up there on the exit out of Moss. It's almost like a dark rain across the track where nobody's going. And that also, interestingly, Seb, is also going to create some of the issues for our drivers. It has all calmed down a lot, which does worry me a little, because that does normally mean it's the calm before a storm series.
Certainly. I mean, yeah, we've been mentioning throughout the race today that as soon as it gets calm, everybody on track has to start worrying and start focusing a little bit more on their braking points and making sure they're not picking up the throttle a little bit too early. But we will see. We will hope that we have a cleaner end to the race. It's been an instant-packed race, but it's also been so interesting to watch. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch, and the best part is we still have around 25 minutes to go. We are side by side in the LMP2 field. This is 79 car and the 43. Torque Freak Racing. Oh, the 79 car's off!
No!
Thomas Fish is CMS Racing. Our former race leaders, I should say, into the wall, so close to hitting their teammate car. They're reversing backwards down the pit lane. The stewards are not going to be overly pleased with Thomas Fisher there. I think that was the best he could do in the situation, though. But contact between CMS Racing Pro and Torque Freak. See CMS Racing Pro enter the pit lane with damage. Torque Freak on their way. Will they pick up a penalty for that? But one thing's for certain, I think there's any chance of CMS winning this race is just completely and utterly gone out the window there, Tim.
Can't J-turn an LMP2? Thomas Fisher says, hold my beer, watch this. And I've seen many a pit entrance and they've been creative, so I've never seen someone reversing into one at speed and then pull off a J-turn and head off on their way. Impressive stuff from the Canadian, but you've got to feel from they've barely put a foot wrong for such large portions of the race, and wow. I think it's time to have a little bit of a look at strategy. Oh no, that's the NR Esports Porsche. Robert Tim.
It's one of the, sorry to cut in, I was just about to say, it's one of the cleanest looking cars, and then there's the shot panned round, that rear wing is looking fairly second hand.
It's not too bad, to be fair, Seb, actually, looking at it. There's worse out there, I think, is probably a good way of putting it.
There certainly is worse out there on track. It's just been the attrition rate of this race. It's been so difficult. You know, the track, the fact it's such a small track as well. Lots of cars
Seb,
on track at the same time.
Out of 40 cars, I know we've seen plenty of incidents, but we have only had, well, there's your last running car, Resolve Racing, out on track. They're in 31st. We lost Race for Cat on lap 84. We're currently leaders coming on lap 111. We lost the other Race for Cat in LMP2 on lap 76. FBP Racing Ferrari lap 63. The Maguire's Porsche on lap 61. The Faster Esports Lamborghini on lap 41. We lost the Flex Motorsport Ferrari on lap 4. Lap 5 was Lone Motorsports LMP2, and then of course the Money House Racing Black Mercedes on lap 4. So in the grand scheme of things, we've lost, what, 8 cars, Seb? It has been a war of attrition, but a lot of them still out there, slogging it away and going for it.
I mean, in a race like this, that's exactly what you have to do. Even if you are, you know, a lap down on your class leader, just get out there, continue doing the laps, and you're almost certainly going to gain positions. With that car going sideways through the final corner, might have been a little bit of a trick of the camera, but I think that was the Disco Motorsport car. Not necessarily cleanly getting through the final corner, though. At least they kept it out of the barriers if there was any form of incident there. Looking down the field, the 396 car and the 52 car battling it out, squeezing. One of the LMP2 cars was the Ferrari, manages to avoid any form of collision. Of course, we've seen a collision down the back straight. That was what ultimately caused our first and only, so far, full course yellow of the race. What can the 52 Ferrari do? 396 car, they've had the pace, they've been up there earlier on today. They had good strategy under the full course yellow, just didn't have the luck. And of course, they're involved in that incident, which gave them the penalty as well. But what can FAC Autotech do? Can they hold on to DSRT? DSRT as well, they were up there as well earlier on in the race, but again, luck was not on their side, and they dropped down through incidents, through penalties. And that has been the story of the race for many drivers out on track. As we have about 19 minutes left to go in this 2-hour 40-minute race. Why don't we just give you a very quick rundown of the position. So it's currently David Koopmans with the Fisher Motorsports Team USA. They're out in the lead in the LMP2 field. Trading Paints Racing Team in second place, with Wilder Sim Racing in third, but David Koopmans for Fisher Motorsport and Brendan Ward for Trading Paints Racing Team, I should say, are both yet to stop for their final time. So our de facto leader is World of Sim Racing. As we look back towards the action very quickly, this is Stephen Maxwell, Black Dove Racing, trying to get past AG Motorsports. That's Hiron Hannick on the outside, almost touching the grass. Down the inside goes the 17 car. So close to contact they are, but they just managed to make it side by side as we head through to the final part of the lap into turn 10. And still the 438 car of Maxwell. Maxwell is ahead, I do apologise. Black Dove getting past AG Motorsports. Maxwell now up to 6th place. 10 places from where they started as Brendan Ward comes into the pit. So that will give World of Sim Racing second place. And now we are just waiting on David Koopmans for Fisher Motorsport USA to stop in our LMP2 field. And looking at the GT3 field, Tim, you know, I think our experts from Talk Freak Racing might be a little bit right here. I don't think Shamrock has necessarily got the pace to win this. You know, they took that stop early, but I don't really think that they've got enough pace. And when Campbell and Dance come into the pits, I think we could see a new race leader as David Koopman finally comes into the pits. And we'll see where he filters out in the race.
I think you're absolutely spot on there, Seb, because how gutting for them. See, built up the lead, had the full course yellow, built up another lead, and they've all undone it for themselves. So it appears at this moment in time. We could be wrong. We have been before. We will be again. But as your leader comes out, Fisher Motorsport with a... Well, let's let it balance itself out. Good job I did, because that is close right up as it updates itself. 4 seconds even. There's a gap between themselves and World of Sim Racing. Can they close it up? Well, it remains to be seen. This is fully game on here. And interestingly, Seb, World of Sim Racing, they are setting near fastest lap pace, lap after lap.
You know,
so
Tim,
they can do this.
Yeah, you know, when I said to him earlier that, you know, it looked like it was going to be the 79 car. It was a shoe-in for the victory in LMP2. And then, you know, I said that it looked like World of Sim Racing, the 51 car, was looking like a shoe-in. And I said, well, it's going to take a strategic masterclass for another car to come out ahead. And that's exactly what has happened. Koopmans for the Fisher Motorsport USA, by running long, getting that overcut, you know, running lower on fuel, he's just gained a 4.5 second advantage. You are right, though. World of Sim Racing team are setting fastest laps. Got a little bit of traffic, though, to contend with at the final back of the straight. Actually, both of the CMS racing cars.
I think there's a bit of an irony there, Seb. You've got World of Sim Racing battling for the lead, and what's one of the cars, CMS, who could have been in a good position to win this, but unfortunately are no longer. And getting lapped by them, it's not a nice experience for them. Got to really feel for those guys, because at one stage they weren't putting a foot wrong, and Thomas Fisher's done great things since he's gone into the car, but that's racing for you. Big shout out, I'll tell you what, to Trading Pace. They've made up 11 places since their starting position. Equally, CMS Endurance, the BMW and GT3 set, 17th overall, 4th in class. They've made up 21 places. Now, I know some of those will have been helped by retirements, but even so, that's
Precision Racing Esports off the track at turn 3. Another victim of the turn 3 Quebec corner. They've hit the wall, managed to escape the clutches of the tyre barrier though, and off they go. Relatively little damage to that LMP2 car, but another driver off the track. And I think we're going to have contact here. Yes, we are side by side between the BMW and the Porsche. Real Pixel Motorsports tries and keeps it out of the wall, successfully does that in fact. Once again, it's all quiet and we all think, well, it's all just calming down, and then everything just seems to happen at once.
To Seb, and I thought I saw a puff of smoke, Seb. I thought I
that's
saw
3 cars.
Resolve. Wow, that was an incredibly scary moment. Is this all happening? There's Hometown off too, Seb.
No, that's Hometown off. We've had Volumers, so that's the number 7 car involved. Stephen Nobes and Theo Taylor, according to our software. That's Theo Taylor, the 16 Porsche, making his way back onto the track. This is at Moss Corner. Let's get a replay and see exactly what transpired. The 85 car, Nippy Racing, as we have a drive-through penalty for the 79 car. So he's lost it. So Stephen Nobes has lost it on the entry, and then we sort of have this sort of awkward getting past and sort of nudging each other out of the way to make room. So it wasn't as bad as it looked from when we picked up on it. We have a look at Stephen Nobes continuing on. He has steering damage though. My producer thankfully says in my ear, so you can see
where the car's moving around, Seb, just unnaturally. It's like it's floating around, and he's going to get onto the grass. No, he's not. He saved it. I was getting a bit worried there that he might get onto the grass and spin it across the track just to add to their woes, but that car... Oh, so there's Hypera. They're off the track. It's like someone's fired the starting gun here, Seb, with 13 minutes to go. Well, 12 and a half minutes to go, to be precise.
Quite like my sprinkler theory. I mean, I think I'm in the minority of this, but I quite like it. You know, we always joke. It's a team joke, you know, the team that I'm in, that we say that iRacing is going to introduce rain and one day they're just going to turn it on when we're not expecting it. And maybe they're doing that at the moment. Never seen a race like this where you end up with multiple sort of incidents at once, and then it all calms down. It's sort of like this ebb and flow of racing. As you rightly point out, 12 minutes left to go. Nobes now in the pits with that steering damage, and I wonder if that is their race done for the 85 team. Don't think they're going to have enough time to fix that car, let alone be able to get back out again, or even if they wanted to, with 12 minutes left to go in the race. This is Lucas David, though. Hyper Racing Team 37 car. They've not had the race they would have wanted. Oh, that's going to go into the wall.
That's Black Devil. I thought it was going to be a graze at first, Seb, but then the front end just dug in. And that's what flicked the rear. Oh, no, that's Sim Racing Grid Moist.
Can we have 2 hugs for Sim Racing Grid Moist now, please? Because I just feel so badly for them. Tries to find first gear, traction control. Certainly disabled on that Dallara LMP2. Manages to get it all up and away. Oh, down the inside goes the 19, though. Very close to making contact. That was Brandon Ward at the wheel. Really wanted to get past, and he's in a battle with the 54. No, sorry, it was a 51. So he's got about a 12-second gap to the car ahead. So no real need to stick it down the inside, but as race drivers, even losing a 10th is pretty painful. That's the 777 car of Santos, just a little bit getting in the way, but it's contact actually. And
that's the Shamrock. Yeah, that's the Shamrock racing car. And Seb, it's their last pass stop that definitely has killed them. It was stationary for 58 seconds. Everyone else around them 24, 25. So they've taken over double, and that's what's killed out. Because if they'd taken the same amount of time as everyone else, Seb, they would still be in the lead. It would be close between themselves and Kinetic, who are currently leading at hands of Aiden Campbell. But they would have 26 plus 8 is 34, isn't it?
Oh yeah, sorry, my maths is...
Yeah, we're trying to do 5-packet maths here. So the gap between themselves and the leaders is, currently, some 23 seconds. They would still be holding on to the lead. That's what's cost them, and it's cost them dearly. But also, Seb, I tell you what, the gap between first and second place overall, Fisher and World of Sim Racing, that had come right down. It was down to a second and a half. Let's not forget it was about 4.5, 5 seconds after the round of pit stops. Has it now extended out to 2.5, but it is getting closer and closer. And as we enter these last 10 minutes, Seb, can World of Sim Racing do it? Well, they can do potentially. They're going to need a little bit of luck from traffic tripping up Fisher Motorsports. But it is possible. But, well, look at it, there you go. It's already out to 3 seconds. It's ebbing and flowing massively. There's 3 wide.
Almost into the grass there for one of the backmarker LMP2s. Very quickly to pick up on your point there, Tim. The 777 car, Shamrock Sim Racing, our lovely YouTube chat has informed us that they took tyres with their final stop, and that's why. They lost the time, and they've not had enough pace delta. What I mean by that, they've not gone quick enough to offset the time that they've lost in the pit. So, disaster for them. Oh, and there's going to be contact there. No, one of the Porsches in the background, sideways through turn 2, manages to collect up the armful of oversteer that he had. Manages to keep it all going. That was the Rossi Spatula's car is Hyper Racing Team off the track once again, all through the marbles you can see on the exit of Moss Corner. Going to be providing absolutely no grip out there as we now head into the final 8 minutes of this race. It's certainly one to stay and watch until the very end. A battle for P1 in the LMP2 class and a battle for the GT3 class as well. Do not go anywhere. Do not dare put on a cup of tea. This is one to just watch until the very, very end, as anything can happen. We've seen it so far in this race. Certainly going to see it in the final 7.5 minutes. Kinetic Racing, though, they finished second in the last 3 races. They want to convert it into the top step of the podium. They're doing exactly what they need to do at the moment, but they have their fierce rivals, Talk Freak Racing, right behind them. Talk Freak just not able to catch up at the moment. That's the 79 car off the track. That's at turn 1. We'll to see an LMP2, sorry, go wide at turn 1 there, Tim. They've got quite enough downforce, but Thomas Fisher deciding that he wants to try and find every part of the track.
Well, I can't think actually of a part of the track set that our drivers haven't discovered, both on the road surface and on the grass too, for good measure. I just thought it was a bit of a lock-up there from the 79 machine of CMS Racing, someone you've got to really feel for. Likewise, the car that's timing-wise ahead of them, Element Sim Racing, both a strong chance of winning this, and now looks like they're going to just about drape inside the top 10. Real Pixel, they've had an eventful time, haven't they? And the bruised and battered GT3 Seb here from Mosport in round 6, and wow, there's going to be a few of these cars that are going to be grateful to get this round out of the way, done and dusted, and then move on to the next one.
Next one is Road America, a very different track from the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park that we're at today.
Seb, sorry to cut across you. I was mentioning that gap earlier for the lead of the race. Well, it's back down to 1.5 seconds, Seb, between Koopmans and Delomo of Fisher versus World of Sim Racing Team. And again, it's that traffic where it's ebbing and flowing and causing that gap to grow and expand. And this is building up to a real crescendo of an ending here. with 5.5 minutes remaining, 1.6 seconds to make up. It sounds like a lot, but due to multi-class, Seb, that gap can disappear in the blink of an eye. You catch a back marker at the wrong place, especially two battling ones, and Delomo will be all over the back of Koopmans like a rash and pushing it hard. To tell you what, you can just see he is driving that car confidently and aggressively. He's tucking up every line. He really looks at one with man and machine right now and trying to extract every little bit of performance. There you go. There's another 10th or two out of Koopmans as he slots it up the inside, dispatches the Ferrari clinical precision, and that gets down to 1.2. Look up ahead the road, because the leader, Fisher Motorsport, they're going to come up onto some back markers yet again. There's one, the Porsche. They're going to catch them at the moment where they don't want to. And our lead, second place, Delomo, is going to catch them at a place where it doesn't need to worry too much.
Oh, sorry to cut across you there. That's Black Dove with damage. Stephen Maxwell, the 438 car, with a very poorly looking Dallara Allen P2. I think he's been off somewhere on that last lap. I think he might have even made contact with Lance Loomis. He's the current driver of the Precision Racing Esports car. Let's have a look and see what's happened. Stephen Maxwell coming through turn one. All looks good so far. Going to run wide. Oh, and done exactly what the Hyper GT3 did earlier on today. So I take it back. So Lance Loomis has had some other incident out there. Stephen Maxwell going to have to carry that damage all the way to the end of the race. This is what happens to the 211 Precision Racing Esports car. This time we're at turn 3, touch the grass, and around the car goes, and if they're lucky, they're going to keep it well away from the wall. Engage first gear, pull in the clutch, and off you go. No harm really done from there, but we rejoin this battle for the lead. Fisher Motorsports now 8/10 separates the top two, I should say. Rusty Spatulas that were looming large behind Koopmans has got out of the way. It's now a straight fight for the lead in the Allen P2 class. Olmo versus Koopmans as we head around the final corner. We have just over 3 minutes left to go in this race. It's all going to be about when does Koopmans get the white flag, or when does the leader get the white flag, I should say. Crucially now, Koopmans has got a lot of traffic. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars up ahead of him. The Audi GT3 is going to make him go all the long way around. That's a car off the track. It will distract him just a little bit. That's Black Dove Racing once again not making the apex of turn 3, but we ride on board now with Alvarez Martinez del Olmo, while the Sim Racing team number 51, they want this lead back as we head through the second part of Moss Corner onto the back straight, or the Mario Andretti straight away. We are in the slipstream. What do the Sim Racing team car think? What do they want to do? Do they want to go for the lead now, or do they want to wait until the last possible moment? We're gaining and gaining and gaining. We're going to pull to the inside. There's no room there. We're going to have to go all the way around the outside as we head into turn 8. And what does Sim Racing just back off, playing their cards? Well, not playing all of their cards yet, I should say. They're going to wait until the final lap. We've got 2 minutes left to go in this race. We're going to have at least another 2 laps of racing. As we cross the line, we have 3.5 separating our top 2 and Allen P2. Through T1 we go. While Sim Racing team hitting the curb absolutely perfectly into turn 2. And it looks like that Wilder Sim Racing car, that 51 car team, is looking so quick at the moment.
It is. It was alluded to earlier, Seb, really driving with massive amounts of confidence. You see Quebec just got another 2.5 temps out of Koopmans. Look, I'm sure I've just clocked some traffic that they're going to come up onto. And this is going to get interesting. Who's going to get the best exit? Let's not forget, Olmo is going to have the slipstream all the way up the hill down the Mario Andretti straight away. There are back markers that you can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're going to have to slalom and scythe their way through. But who's going to be the braver? Is someone going to box someone in? Let's find out, Seb. I can't wait for these last couple of laps. It's going to be the last lap. It's going to be white flag here.
And the inside goes Wilder Sim Racing, just has to back out though. So close to disaster. And has that given the advantage back to Fisher Motorsports? You're right, we start the final lap of the race. And who is going to come out on top? Who is going to win the overall race here at the VSCA Canadian Sports Car Challenge at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park? Koopmans has got 2 different GT3s to get by, but World of Sim Racing is delayed through turn 3. This could be the difference between first and second for them. Disaster if you are a World of Sim Racing team fan. The gap is now up to 0.6 of a second, and once again they just have to back out of the throttle. And I think after all of that, the pace the World of Sim Racing team have had, the fact that they led the race for so many laps in the mid part of the race, it's all gone undone for them in the final few laps, and it's looking, as long as Fisher Motorsports can make their way through the final few
this isn't
corners
done and
of
dusted.
the race.
Look, there's two GT3s ahead. They're going to trip over them coming out of White's corner. This is not done and dusted.
It's certainly not done and dusted. What does Fisher Motorsports do? What does David Koopman do? He dives down to the inside. That's the leader of the GT3 class. They're side by side. It's going to be a drag race to the line. They're side by side as they cross the line. Fisher Motorsports wins out. 0.08 of a second separates Koopmans and Olmo from the World of Sim Racing team. 0.08 of a second. 2 hours and 40 minutes of racing. It all comes down to hundredths of a second. Congratulations as well while all of that was happening to Aidan Campbell, Kinetic Racing VSCA GT3 team. They take their first win in the VSCA Championship. Congratulations to them. Beating out their fierce rivals, Talk Freak Racing. They are actually still going. Now they've just crossed the line. I do apologise. They're in second with the 7 car of Shamrock Sim Racing. Gambled with taking tyres. Couldn't quite make it work. They'll come home for a thoroughly deserved podium, but up on the steps as they would have liked. If we look further down the order, this is Fogel and Mayer battling it out, although they're a little bit too far away from each other to do anything. Fogel crosses the line in 5th, our highest Mercedes driver of the day. Mayer have to settle for 6th place in the 84 car. But what an ending to that race, here. What an absolute amazing ending. You couldn't make it up. I mean, it almost feels like the Formula One World Championship of last year. You know, after all of those races, after all of the 2 hours and 40 minutes of racing, they are less than 0.1 of a second separating them.
Wow, Seb, it looked like it was done and dusted, but it just goes to show why you should never give up until the checkered flag, because spotted just on the brow of the hill, those two GT3s, and I knew they were going to catch them at the wrong point, and it happened. Koopmans was tripping up over him. His palms would have been incredibly sweaty and worried, because he would have seen Delhomme, who had nothing to lose realistically, absolutely just launching and sending the car. As we see our race winner, David Koopmans, there with the traditional donuts, the only way to celebrate in motor racing a great victory, other than with a weave and a flash of the lights, if your car does have lights, that is. But what can we say? You hit the nail on the head there, Seb. We've been racing for 2 hours and 40 minutes. And what does the win come down to? 0.08 of a second. Not tenths, not even seconds, 0.08 of the VSCA Sports Car Championship. And congratulations, Fisher Motorsport. Well, as they cross the line, those two, there is your clarification for it, Seb. 76 hundredths of a second is all that this came down to. I think we're going to remember this one.
We certainly are. It's been one of the best races to watch. It's had it all. I'll take you through your LMP2 race results. As we said, Fisher Motorsport winning the category with World of Sim Racing team just behind them in second, and Talk Freak Racing Ascari round out your top 3 in only 2.6 seconds, in fact, off the leading 2. So it was a really tight field in the end. Trading Paints Racing Team 19 in 4th, with Albrecht Motorsports 5th. AG Motorsports will finish in 6th place, with Precision Racing Esports in 7th, even after their late spin. Absolute heartbreak for Element Sim Racing Fire, the number 7 car. They led the first stint. They had so much pace, and then it all went bad for them when they made that move down the inside of turn 1, and their race changed from there on out. Black Dove Racing had some really good pace throughout the race, just unfortunate with incidents, and came across the line limping with that damage that we saw. CMS.com, CMSRacing.com Pro I should say. Again, was leading the race at some point, was looking like they were going to win. It just wasn't meant to be for them today. Sim Racing Grid Moist as well. I mean, what can you say about them? Apart from, I think they need a collective hug. It's not been the race that they would have wanted today, and I hope that when we return to the VSCA Sports Car Championship at Road America, they can right their wrongs. Rusty Spatula 12th, Hangtown Hero Racing 13th, Race for Cat Motorsports in 14th with their sister team Race for Cat Motorsport 11 in 15th. Disastrous day for the Race for Cat team, and Lone Wolf Motorsports are 747, not even completing 10 laps in this race. And just before, Tim, we have a look at the GT3 standings, I'm going to have to make my excuses and leave. It's been absolutely incredible, and I've been privileged to be able to commentate on such an amazing race, but I've got to head on a very, very quick flight to Laguna Seca, where I'm going to do some Formula 4 commentary on the Apex Racing TV YouTube channel. So I will leave you to it, and congratulations to all of our winners.
Pleasure as always, Seb, and yeah, make sure after watching the interviews, tune in on the other side on Apex Racing TV to catch Seb in that, as I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely epic race. But let's take you through your GT3 standings. Kinetic Racing VSCA GT3. Wow, what a drive from them. Actually came down to it. They took the victory. Talk Freak Racing Maggots 4.5 seconds behind in second and ran out your podium. It's Shamrock Racing who ultimately were their own demise in the end. That taking tyres was not the inspired strategy, and it cost them victory here today in Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. DRG Racing, sorry, CMSRacing.com Endurance, get words out in a minute, pick up the 4th place of the best of the rest. DRG Racing Silver were 5th, then Fisher Motorsport Porsche, last lap car on the lead lap. Hack Racing 7th, Fark Autotech another on 8th, and DSRT last of the cars, 1 lap down in 9th, running out the top 10. It's Fireside Motorsport and the Audi starting off 4 cars, 2 laps down. Real Pixel and BMW NR Sports 12th, and Fisher Motorsport Eagle ran out to 13th place. Disco Motorsport, so unlucky. Of course, that's missing their pit stop earlier. Pit box earlier really hurt them, but what a set of laps that they pulled out to pull out that gap. Wasn't enough, but it was spectacular to see for the neutral. 14th in the end, 3 laps down. LTS Motorsport VSCA, 4 laps down and 15th. Then it's Hyper and Mosport, 5 laps down. The Apex Racing Group, 6 laps down. Resolves Racing, last of the runners, finishing in 18th. But, so apologies, let's just we'll flick through now your retirements. FBP Racing, 55 laps go. Maguire's, Faster Esports, Flex Motorsport, Moneyhouse Racing Black, who will of course be lost all the way back on lap 4 a long time ago since they've completed 130 laps, and of course Moneyhouse Racing Red, disqualified from the start due to an infringement around the car number that they had on the car. So unlucky for them. Let's have a bit of a chat to some of our drivers. First up, let's head across into LMP2. Well, we're now going to be joined by one of the drivers from the team that finished third, Talk Freak Racing Ascari. Joshua Wolf joins us now. Wow. Definitely a real challenge out there. And Seb, during commentary, Joshua described it as a war of attrition. From at least sitting up here in the commentary box, it definitely seemed that way. From your side in being inside the car, did it feel like that?
Yeah, I would say so. That's kind of how this track is. It's so high speed and but very dependent on downforce. So it just makes it difficult behind people, and if you drop one wheel, it can be very catastrophic. So definitely gained quite a few positions due to that throughout the race, but we still had some pace. I kind of hoping for a late caution there at the end.
Well, we were half hedging our bets during the race whether we would have a late caution. Of course, the first one came just inside the hour mark, so you would have said that we would have seen another one, but it did seem to mellow down after that first caution period. Did it seem like that, or was it still just as frantic in the second half of the race?
From my point of view, because I had to dodge so much stuff, I think it was still as frantic. But I was also deep in the field at that point, so might not have been stuff that caught up, because it seemed like when I first got in that first stint, it was just left and right. I'm dodging cars that are spinning off somewhere. So
all things considered, happy with the third place, or do you feel missed opportunity potentially to finish a bit higher?
There's definitely some mistakes that could have been lessened, that if we hadn't had them, we probably actually would have been talking to you from the top step. But it's to come away with no damage or very little damage throughout this race and still come on a podium is a pretty good result.
Looking forward to Road America for the next round?
Based on our pace, yes. Me driving around that track, not so much, but we'll see.
Yes, it could, could well be one of those inspired ones, or one to forget, and nothing, in between. But we'll look forward to seeing you next time out. That's Joshua Wolf for Talk Freak Racing. Yeah, picked up third place in LMP2 and thus overall. Well, let's have another bit of a chat to another one of our drivers. We're going to move across now into GT3, where we're going to pick up with another, funnily enough, of the Talk Freak Racing teams. It's Talk Freak Racing Maggots, to be precise. We're now joined by Neil Middleton, number 6 car, second in class. Congratulations. Well, we were just speaking to your teammate Joshua Wolf, obviously in the sister car in LMP2. He described it as a war of attrition. Normally it's a bit more challenging in the GT3s, or at least slower cars, whatever it may be. Did it feel like that even more so for yourself?
The biggest problem we had, to be honest, was passing. I was talking to Josh in the green room before coming here, and the problem we have in GT3s is that because nearly all of the corners are quite high speed, it's really hard to follow a car closely out of a corner, and there's no braking zone at the end of the next straight to try and get that pass done. So, I mean, for instance, I was just talking to Vincent in the Kinetic car. I was sat behind him for the first hour, and there's nothing I could do, and it's easy to defend, and you're basically waiting for a mistake to happen. Luckily, it looks like across the rest of the field there were plenty of mistakes going on, so just for the win, it was hard for us to get ahead and do something with it. And then the instant we had about 45 minutes in, we had our steering bent at 20 degrees left for the remainder of the race, which slowed us down a fair chunk.
It did indeed, but then a bit of stroke of luck came your way. Shamrock elected, despite dominating, I think it's true to say, and arguably the whole race, and looked like the clear bookies' favourite from the get-go. Of course, decided to take tyres during the last pit stop, and that changed it and elevated yourself from third up into second. I mean, it must be like all your Christmases come at once.
I'd love to understand that, because we've talked about it and we don't understand it at all. Either it's they didn't take tyres at the first stop under the yellow, which again doesn't make much sense, or they had accidentally selected them and whatever and didn't realise until the car went up on the jacks. But I didn't mind. I mean, we're okay with that. They can take tyres if they want.
Well, exactly. It was definitely, especially if, I suppose, from yourself, if it means that you get moved up a position. But no, definitely want to obviously move on from. And Road America, you were saying about the challenges of overtaking around here. Road America, a lot easier, of course. You've got the start-finish straight, the run down to turn 5 officially, as much as people do call it turn 3. Lots of big braking, overtaking opportunities. Should be a lot more friendly for the GT3s for plenty of racing.
It should definitely be a lot better. Unfortunately, it also means the P2s will be more tempted to send it. So I think we'll probably be looking at our mirrors quite a lot. But it's going to be an interesting race now, because points-wise, it's pretty much just us and Kinetic in contention now. So I think there's only something like 50 points between us, and a win is 350 or something. So there's a lot to be lost in one race.
Yes, there is. It's definitely going to be a bit of a gamble for yourselves. You're going to play it safe, or you're going to go for broke and try and take on your competitors?
Well, I'll be on a beach in Italy, so I don't know. But I think we will probably have to balance it between the two. I think we need to get a good baseline pace that is repeatable and try not to die.
Definitely, it'd be intriguing to see. But congratulations, second place here today. Actually, it's our Mosport Park's Track Freak Racing Maggots. That's Jonathan Dance in the Porsche 911 GT3. And let's have a. We'll see if just having a bit of a look. We've got enough time maybe for here for one more of our drivers or teams. Let's have a quick look. Because I'm not too sure if they're disappearing. Apologies for that. Yeah. So we've got time for, let's see if we can catch in with Darian Roy, who was one of our teams. So let's see if we can catch in with him. Our spot is on mute, so this might work, might not. The beauty of live TV. Darian, can you hear us?
Yeah, hey, what's going on?
There we go, fantastic. I spotted you on mute. Wasn't sure if you'd be able to pick us up or not, but wow, what a race for yourselves. Well,
Yeah, also good.
sorry, you carry on.
Also, yeah, it was a really interesting race. There was a lot going on for us that were working against us. So to pull out what we did, it was good.
Definitely, and I mean, we've spoken to both the Talk Freak racing teams within LMP2 and GT3. Spoke about being a real war of attrition. You guys were right in the thick of things as well. I mean, talk us through it.
Well, we had a decent quali. I think it could have been a little better. I had pace for pole, but I just couldn't catch it. So we're just thinking we're gonna work our way up and let attrition do its thing. And then we had that penalty at the start. I think it was lap 3 or 4, which really set us back. And while I was in 4th by that time, and I started 9th. So we definitely had the potential to win if it wasn't for a couple of penalties there.
But it was the penalties that definitely did obviously hurt some of you guys more than others out there. In terms of, obviously, when the full course yellow came, were you relieved to see that or not so much?
Oh, yeah, we were really relieved to see it because it meant that we're going to get a lap back, and then from then on, we're going to be only 1 lap down. So it meant that we could just have to wait for either another full course yellow, attrition, guys getting caught up in incidents or penalties, and it seemed to work our way once that full course yellow ended. So we're just like, let's continue on and see what we can get out of it.
Definitely, and you hoping for better fortunes than 7th at Road America.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think I'm pretty good at Road America. I've had good races there, so I think the pace will carry on to Road America for sure.
Definitely, that's good to hear from you. So that's Darian Roy of Precision Racing Esports, who finished 7th in LMP2. Let's catch up. We've got time for a bit of a chat to another one of our drivers. Let's have a chat to Vincent from VSCA Kinetic. Wow, what a race for you guys. It was definitely an interesting one to say the least.
Yeah, we're not entirely sure how it came to be because we were way at the back of the pack after the caution for optional repairs, and I look away, I look back, and we're 3rd. I'm like, okay, and then all of a sudden we're 1st. So we were like, okay, well, it's good.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we spoke earlier to Talk Freak, that I mean, I'm not 100% sure why Shamrock elected to take on tyres. Obviously, it was like all your Christmases came at once for the pair of you. You just instantly gained a place and practically gifted you the 1st place here today. As much as, it was a hard-fought return to the podium places. It was offered up on a silver platter for you and took it with both hands.
Yeah, after the caution, we were lapping almost a second a lap faster than everybody. It's almost like nobody took tires. And then, like you said, at the end, everybody took tires. So it was like, what's happening here? Like, did we miss something? Or so we're like, well, okay, we'll just keep lapping and see what happens. But yeah, it worked out. So it was good.
Did you start to question yourselves that you'd missed something at that stage when everyone else was taking tyres and doing different alternate strategies?
I'm trying to do the math in my head. Like, did we not put enough fuel? Like, what's going on? Like, yeah, but you know, we looked through the replay. We saw that they took the tires, so we were like, okay, well, hopefully. I mean, we were about a second a lap faster after the caution with people that didn't take tires. So we were like, well, maybe they're hoping to catch back up. So, but yeah, they just couldn't do it, unfortunately.
Obviously, those opening laps were a fraught affair, especially when you had the LMP2s come around the first time. Just walk us through those couple of laps. I think it was around about lap 4 or 5 when they came through the first time. Just put us inside the cockpit of your Porsche 911 right now and what it was like to try and deal with it.
It's a little bit chaotic. You're just trying to look at the mirror while you're trying to look ahead, not to rear end people, and not miss your break points, and you're trying to time if they're gonna be able to pass you or not, because everybody's drives a little bit different, and you got some that'll just throw it in there at the last second, so you're kind of having to jump out of the way, and it's almost like a Jesus take the wheel moments. You're just holding on for dear life. And 2 laps later, you're like, okay, breathe. They're all by.
Road America, can you make it another win on the bounce?
Well, we're definitely going to go for it. I mean, it's a lot better track for us as a team than Mosport here. To be honest, we didn't even have that much practice. It's been a chaotic week at work, so we were quite surprised with the victory here. So we're going to definitely be pushing at Road America because that's one of my more favorite tracks. So
definitely looking forward to it and seeing you out on track. That's been for Kinetic Racing VSCA GT3 in the Porsche 911. Picked up the victory here today at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. But wow, what a round it has been. We had drama, excitement right from the start to the very end. And let's not forget, a race finish after 2 hours and 40 minutes that finished 800ths. Sorry, hundredths of a second. I'm even losing track of just how close it was, right to the very edge of the line. And well, what can we say? It's all part of why we love this championship, the VSCA. But, oh, wow, I've just about, our producer Smooley's managed to grab our victor here today. We're going to speak to them before we head off. David Koopmans now joins us, Officious Motorsports in LMP2, your victory, obviously in class and overall. I was just about to round out David. 800ths of a second at the line. I would say you couldn't get much closer than that. Well, you could technically, but even so, as you crossed the line, did you realise that you'd won?
I had to do a couple of meters to realise that the race was over.
Oh, brilliant! I mean, coming on to that last lap, we were watching. We could see, but even laps before that, World of Sim Racing, they were catching you quickly, weren't they? Did you think, obviously coming on to these last stages of the last few laps, you were safe, or were you starting to get a bit nervous in the car?
To be honest, the last laps, like the last 5-6 laps, I was confident that I could maintain the gap because we had quite a good pace. But then on the last 3 laps, we were quite unlucky with the traffic, always getting the traffic at the worst moment. And the gap was closing, and at some point they got in the draft, and yeah, still unlucky with the traffic, so I had to start to play defensive, closing doors, and yeah, at the end it worked out.
It didn't. Coming on to that last lap, well, you got a bit of luck with the traffic, and Alvaro of World Sim Racing team obviously dropped back from yourself, and then as we were coming up the hill, I just clocked and said to Seb during commentary, there's 2 GT3s just on the horizon. They're going to catch him into the final corner. And you did. Was it one of those moments of, oh no, we're going to lose this right at the line?
Yeah, that's why I went like closing as much of the doors I could, and I knew this was going to happen. When I saw the traffic, the two cars, I think one of them was a a sister car, so it kind of braked a bit to let us pass. But then the other one like continued racing, and I had to do the standard move to overtake on the inside, but then the car behind had much better exit on the last corner, so I had close the doors, so I had to go the way around. And the start finish line was not the first one but the second one, so I had to continue crossing the fingers to be ahead.
Oh, definitely. Road America, I mean, everyone's looking forward to it. I assume that you're in that same bank of teams that you're looking forward to it, pushing hard and trying to pick up another victory for Fisher Motorsport.
Yeah, we'll try everything to take the win again.
Definitely. Great talking to you. That's David Koopman of Fisher Motorsports, your victor here today at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for the Canadian Sports Car Challenge in VSCA. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, and thanks to the team as well. I mean, it's at the end it's a short race, but still a team effort.
Most certainly. We'll see you next time out at Road America. But wow, what a round, as we're just alluding to, as was wrapping up previously. For our producer managed to grab our race winner for a quick chat there, but I think it's time to go and have a lie down. Can you believe it? 2 hours, 40 minutes of racing, and it comes down to 800ths of a second. You couldn't get much closer. Can you? Well, find out in a few weeks' time when we head to Road America for myself, Tim Cox, Sebastian Walsh-Williams and Samila Kumo at Apex Racing TV. We'll see you next time when the VSCA Championship heads to Road America.